The night is alive with the constant flicker of camera flashes as the red carpet event begins. The sounds of shutters clicking fill the air while top stars make their appearances. Mr. Jin Jae-joon stands amidst the crowd, having just secured the Best Actor award. Reporters swarm him, asking if he expected such a monumental win. Nearby, the elegant Miss Hyun is stopped for a quick interview as she smiles for the cameras. However, the media's attention quickly shifts as a specific name begins to echo through the crowd. Reporters and photographers scan the area, desperately searching for the arrival of Kang Woo-jin. The moment Woo-jin steps out, the atmosphere turns electric. Flashbulbs ignite in a near-blinding sequence as he is immediately surrounded. Reporters shout over one another, demanding to know his thoughts regarding his acceptance speech. Woo-jin walks the red carpet in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo and a crisp white shirt, his expression remaining remarkably calm and stoic despite the chaos. Internally, he grumbles about how much his ears hurt from the shouting and wishes he could simply walk past them all. He recalls his manager's firm instruction that he must agree to at least one short interview before the festival concludes. As he moves along the rope line, Woo-jin's gaze drifts toward the city skyline in the distance. He reflects on how much his vision has improved, noting that he can now clearly see the apartments far away. He wonders if the residents over there are watching the festivities from their windows. This prompts a sudden memory of where he was exactly 1 year ago. The scene shifts back to a simple room where a younger Woo-jin was having a casual drinking party with his friends to wrap up the year. Back then, watching film festivals and award shows on television felt like looking at a completely different world. Reflecting further, Woo-jin considers the strange passage of time. Before he entered this new life, he lived a repetitive existence, commuting to and from work every day like anyone else. While he views that former life as valuable, his current reality is vastly different, where his every word and move is destined to become a headline for news articles. His reverie is broken when a reporter asks if his acceptance speech, which sounded like a declaration of war, was merely showmanship. Woo-jin stops in his tracks, turning his sharp gaze toward the cameras. With absolute gravity, he replies that he was entirely sincere about it. The declaration sends a wave of murmurs through the assembled press. Before they can press him further, a large security official steps in, apologizing to the crowd and explaining that they have another schedule to attend to. Woo-jin is ushered away and pulled into a waiting black van. Inside the vehicle, his colleagues are waiting. President Choi jokes about him causing another scene in the short time he was outside. Woo-jin leans back, closing his eyes, and offers a quiet apology, claiming he was simply trying to express his ambition in moderation. His long-haired manager, wearing glasses, laughs while running a hand through his hair. He remarks that such a bold attitude is very typical of Woo-jin, but points out that for a rookie who just won the Best New Actor award to declare he will win the Best Actor award next year is quite extreme. He warns Woo-jin that the entertainment world is a jungle and that many industry veterans might not look favorably upon such a statement. Woo-jin remains unbothered, stating that what is said is said. The manager concedes, noting that even if there is criticism, the noise marketing has been a massive success. He observes that while hate comments have increased, Woo-jin's influence and recognition are skyrocketing. Woo-jin checks his phone, seeing headlines about how he shook up the Blue Dragon Film Festival with a warning directed at prominent top actors. He decides that he will continue with this bold concept through the end of the year. A montage of news articles follows, detailing his unprecedented streak of success. He is labeled a double crown winner, and the public reaction is a volatile mix of shock, anger, and awe. Netizens debate whether he is a justified genius or a crazy stunt performer, but the numbers speak for themselves as his social media followers continue to climb. The momentum carries over to the 56th Grand Bell Awards. Woo-jin is announced as the winner of the Best New Actor award for his performance in Drug Dealer. Taking the stage with a bouquet of flowers, he thanks the audience and promises to bring results that will silence all current controversies in the coming year. This victory marks his third trophy. Shortly after, at another ceremony, he is called up for the New Wave Award. By the time that night ends, he has embraced his 4th trophy, becoming the first rookie in history to win 4 crowns. The dominance continues at the SBC Drama Awards. The announcer introduces the Scene Stealer Award, given to the actors who performed the most outstanding roles of the year. Kang Woo-jin is named the winner for his portrayal of Park Dae-in, profiler Henry An. Sitting at a formal table surrounded by other industry elites, it is clear that Woo-jin has become the main character of the evening. Though he does not take home the grand prize or the top excellence award that night, he secures the Best New Actor award for profiler Henry An as well. He is also honored with a special acting award, an achievement that stuns the presenters. By the end of the award season, Woo-jin has swept home a total of 7 trophies, marking an unparalleled historical achievement in the Korean entertainment industry. Despite this splendid record, many stakeholders still doubt the sincerity of his declaration. The scene transitions to the filming set of The Island of the Missing, where a group of men in suits has gathered to observe Woo-jin's performance. On the set, Woo-jin is dressed in full military camouflage. He is deeply immersed in a harrowing scene, leaning over a wounded soldier named Jin Sun-cheol. The soldier is covered in blood, crying out in agony and pleading for someone to save him. He looks up at Woo-jin with tear-filled eyes, asking who he is. Woo-jin's expression shifts into something terrifying. A chilling smile spreads across his face as he leans in close to the dying man. He whispers that the place is incredibly fun, describing the situation as having all the sweet and salty elements of joy and tension. The observers on the sidelines are mesmerized, noting that Woo-jin is expressing a dual personality through subtle facial expressions alone. They realize that his acting depth is growing at an insane rate. When the director finally yells, "Cut!" the tension on the set evaporates. Woo-jin immediately drops the character and helps his fellow actor, Mr. Woo-chang, to his feet. While the director praises them for a great job on the last scene, Woo-jin is internally distracted. He finds the smell on the set unbearable because fish sauce was sprayed everywhere to simulate the scent of a real battlefield for realism. He wonders how everyone else can seem so fine while he struggles with the odor. His colleagues, however, interpret his silence as him being in top condition and remaining unshaken by the presence of the industry stakeholders watching him. The director watches Woo-jin from a distance, deep in thought. He reflects on how Woo-jin's acting has become impeccable and solid, with an emotional appeal that has become viscous, lingering long after a scene ends. He notes that Woo-jin seems to be developing as if he is buying the necessary skills and imprinting them directly into his body. As the chapter concludes, the director looks toward the upcoming year with intense anticipation, wondering what kind of legendary performance Kang Woo-jin will show the world to fulfill the declaration he made to the entire industry. The vibrant hues of a setting sun wash over a quiet, tree-lined mountain range, casting deep pink and orange shadows across the horizon. This tranquil wilderness is suddenly interrupted by the sharp command of a director calling for a cut, signaling the end of a grueling day of filming. As the camera pulls back, the serene landscape gives way to the controlled chaos of a massive production set nestled among traditional houses with dark, tiled roofs. Crew members dressed in heavy winter gear immediately spring into action, moving heavy equipment and checking monitors while the low hum of professional chatter fills the air. One staff member announces that they need to reset for a bust shot, focusing on the character from the chest up to capture the raw emotion of the scene. Amidst this organized chaos, the lead actor, Kang Woo-jin, stands stoically in full military gear. He is dressed in a digital camouflage uniform, complete with a tactical vest and a heavy helmet buckled under his chin. A distinctive addition to his look for this scene is a light, scruffy beard that covers his jawline. Nearby, a group of female staff members observe him from a distance. One of them asks if the others don't think Mr. Woo-jin looks quite good with the beard. Another quickly agrees, admitting she was surprised by how well the rugged look suits him. However, the sentiment isn't universal. Woo-jin looks on with a skeptical expression, thinking to himself that the look is actually terrible. He wonders if he doesn't just look like a homeless person with the unkempt facial hair. This specific look is a vital part of the character's current arc. The beard was added because of the character's journey. After being spotted pushing a fellow soldier off a school rooftop, the character, Corporal Jin Suncheol, was forced to go into hiding deep within the mountains. The scene transitions to a series of stylized, purple-tinted panels depicting the plot. It shows Suncheol standing over a fallen shadow on a rooftop, followed by a timed jump where he suddenly reappears to save a woman named Ha-Yura. She is seen cowering on the ground, wearing her own tactical gear, as she is being attacked by the mysterious villagers of a place known as the Island of the Missing. In the present, the director calls for a cut once more, and the intensity of the scene breaks. The director sits behind a long wooden table cluttered with monitors, observing the playback. He speaks directly to the lead actress, addressing her as Miss Yura, and requests that she react with a more drastic sense of shock during Mr. Woojin's appearance. The actress, sitting on the dusty ground in her camouflage gear, looks up and acknowledges the director's notes. Woojin stands nearby, a towering and silent figure in the background. The director calls for the crew to reset, shouting for them to go again and signaling the start of the action. As Woojin prepares for the take, he reflects on the fact that this upcoming scene will be the final shot for his character, Jin Suncheol. The production eventually wraps up for the day, and the atmosphere on set lightens considerably. The pink hue of the sunset has deepened as the director calls for a final cut, announcing that they are officially done with the shot. Relief washes over the cast and crew. Woojin, still in his military uniform, reaches down and offers a hand to Ha-Yura to help her up from the dirt. He gives her a small nod and tells her she did a great job. She smiles back, thanking him and returning the compliment. As they shake hands, the director approaches them with a wide, satisfied grin. He calls out to Woojin, thanking him for all his hard work. He admits that because of Woojin's performance, his own professional ambition has grown, and his standards for acting have risen significantly. He asks Woojin if he plans to rest now that his filming is finished. Woojin remains professional, informing the director that he doesn't have time for a break just yet. He explains that he has to go through some domestic schedules in Korea before immediately heading to Japan for the filming of a project referred to as BSS. The actress and the director are both taken aback by his relentless work ethic. The actress exclaims in surprise, asking if he is trying to work himself to death and insisting that he really should get some rest. The director laughs, patting Woojin on the back and asking him to send his regards to a director Kyotaro. He gives Woojin a final piece of advice to take care of his health. As Woojin walks away, other members of the crew call out their thanks, feeling a bit of a bummer that the actors are starting to leave the set one by one. Woojin bows politely, thanking them all for their hard work. Internally, he reflects on how a few months ago, he used to get emotional whenever a project wrapped up, but now his mind is already focused entirely on the next task. He wonders if he has simply gotten used to this cycle of constant work. Later, the scene moves to a van where Woojin is traveling with his management team. They are leaving the filming location in Bio and heading back to Seoul. A female staff member is excited, telling Woojin that the reactions to his YouTube channel's recently uploaded videos are absolutely insane. She shows him a phone screen detailing the metrics for his channel, Alter Ego. A video featuring a guest named Warren has reached a staggering 6.82 million views. Furthermore, a teaser for content featuring Kara has hit over 3 million views, despite only being a preview. She notes that the number of Japanese and English comments is increasing rapidly as well. Woojin is impressed by the numbers and reaches for the phone to look at the comments himself, but the staff member suddenly pulls it away, telling him to hold on. She looks worried and advises him not to look at the comments on social media or YouTube today because there have been some hate comments mixed in. She asks if he is alright, noting that the negativity has increased more than before, likely stemming from something called the Blue Dragon incident. Woojin remains completely unfazed, telling her that he doesn't really care and that she shouldn't worry about it. Zero damage was taken, as he concludes that the hate comments must be why his ears have been itching lately. President Choi then hands Woojin a stack of papers, identifying it as the storyboard for the stunt test for a project called Necessary Evil, which is scheduled for the next day. He tells Woojin to look it over while he briefs him on the upcoming schedule. The manager explains that the dates for the script reading and the start of filming for BSS have been set. Woojin is called to Japan on the 20th, meaning they will be constantly traveling back and forth between Japan and Korea. The rest of the team in the back of the van looks exhausted just hearing the plan, thinking about how brutal the lack of a break will be. The manager continues, stating they will cram the BSS filming days together as much as possible and combine his existing Korean schedules into 1 or 2 days to finish them. A calendar is shown with the 18th marked for the Japan arrival and the 20th marked as being called in for BSS. The manager mentions that the itinerary is packed with interviews with Japanese media outlets, a fan signing event, and a photo shoot, and that he has already filtered out most of the other requests. He asks Woojin if he knows how many Japanese variety shows have been trying to book him, noting that there were at least 10 offers in the last month alone, which is more than what Warren's group usually receives. He asks if Woojin wants him to book one, but Woojin immediately shakes his head no. He asks the manager to keep rejecting them, explaining that his current variety show, Our Table, is already enough for him. He thinks to himself that variety shows are actually more draining than acting. Woojin turns his attention back to the storyboard for the stunt test. He notices that new stunt movements and directions have been added. As he flips through the pages, he thinks the new sequences look quite cool, even without the assistance of his specialized subspace. The action scenes begin to form vividly in his mind. He feels the movements getting ingrained into his body, realizing he could likely reenact them perfectly right now. He concludes that just as a character's world becomes clearer the more he acts, the martial arts skills he mastered through the influence of something called Last Kill 3 are becoming a permanent part of him. He marvels at the power of the subspace and decides to see if he can polish these skills even further. The scene shifts to a professional stunt gym where several men are practicing high-intensity martial arts movements. They are throwing kicks and punches with precision, accompanied by heavy grunts of exertion. 2 men stand off to the side, observing the practice. One of them confirms that the stunt storyboards and the schedule were sent to Mr. Woojin. PD Song expresses concern that the schedule might be too rushed, leaving Woojin very little time to familiarize himself with the movements. The first man dismisses the concern, noting that Woojin is leaving for Japan soon and his schedule is simply too tight. He adds that the test itself won't take long because they just need to see his martial arts form. He mentions he is looking forward to seeing it in person, especially after seeing Woojin's black box footage. Across the gym, 2 younger stunt performers take a break, sweating from their workout. One asks if Kang Woojin is really coming in person for the test. The other calls Woojin a lunatic for showing up himself when they are just looking at his form. They wonder what his skills are actually like, with one speculating that he probably just learned some basic self-defense and got lucky in the footage they saw. He bets that Woojin will be so nervous the next day that he will mess up all of his movements. A third man, with a dark and menacing expression, leans in and suggests that they should make the stunt choreography more difficult the next day, but in a subtle way. He grins widely, showing a row of sharp teeth, and explains that when an actor is new to action, you usually go a little harder on them just so the experience is memorable. He looks genuinely curious to see if Woojin really has the guts for it. Back in the van, Woojin's eyes narrow as he feels another itch in his ear. He rubs it, certain now that someone must be talking about him again. Entering a massive, state-of-the-art action school for the first time, Kang Woojin finds himself momentarily overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the facility. As he looks around, his attention is immediately drawn to the complex array of wires and equipment hanging from the high ceiling, realizing that this is where the cinematic magic of high-flying stunts truly begins. He is greeted by the director and the martial arts director, a large, imposing man in a black t-shirt who wasted no time testing the rookie actor's mettle with a bone-crushing handshake. While the action director is surprised by the strength of the young man's grip, Wu Jin remains remarkably composed, his calm aura and lack of visible nerve starting to set a heavy, expectant mood across the entire gymnasium. The martial arts director introduces himself as the one in charge of the action sequences for the upcoming project, Beneficial Evil. He notes that while this is Wu Jin's first action-oriented role, the actor seems far more settled and cooler than the typical rookie. Standing amidst the seasoned stuntmen, Wu Jin's presence is so dominant that the staff begins to wonder if he is actually a cut above veteran actors they've worked with in the past. To get things started, the director suggests a quick demonstration of the planned choreography. A group of stuntmen, including a red-haired actor named Cheolgyu, take their positions on the mats to show Wu Jin the flow of the scene. As Wu Jin watches the demonstration, he observes the movements carefully, noting that the pace seems a bit slow, though he assumes this is simply because it is a rehearsal. Little does he know that Cheolgyu is far from impressed. Looking at Wu Jin's slender physique, the red-haired stuntman decides that the actor looks like a pushover and resolves to give him a little tension during their turn. Cheolgyu's plan is to intentionally deviate from the storyboard to see how the rookie handles a real, unexpected physical threat, wanting to see if the actor truly has the guts to match his reputation. When the demonstration ends, the director asks Wu Jin if he needs to see it again, but the actor confidently states that he can do it immediately. He decides he will match the slow pace he just witnessed to ensure he doesn't overdo it. After removing his heavy padding coat, Wu Jin stands ready on the platform. To prepare himself, he takes a deep breath and internally calls upon the character of Jang Yunwoo from the Beneficial Evil script, specifically focusing on the character's ingrained martial arts expertise. As he does, a chilling transformation takes place. His eyes take on a sharp, glowing intensity, and his entire posture shifts into that of a cold, calculated predator. The director calls for the scene to begin, and the atmosphere in the room shifts instantly. Cheolgyu rushes in, fully intending to pull his prank by changing his trajectory and forcing Wu Jin into an awkward, unplanned defensive position. However, the moment Cheolgyu's movement goes off script, Wu Jin's martial arts skill reacts instinctively. He doesn't just follow the storyboard. His body perceives the shift in the environment and compensates with terrifying precision. Wu Jin digs into the space Cheolgyu thought he had closed, moving with a speed and fluid grace that catches everyone off guard. In a split second, Wu Jin executes a leg trip to knock the charging opponent down, just as the original plan dictated, but with much more force and realism than the stuntman expected. Cheolgyu feels as though he has collided with a giant, immovable tree. As the red-haired man falls to his knees, Wu Jin follows through with the next sequence, intended to pin the opponent to the ground. However, because of Cheolgyu's initial erratic movement and Wu Jin's reflexive adjustment, the actor's hand finds an unexpected grip. Instead of a standard pin, Wu Jin accidentally catches the waistband of Cheolgyu's athletic pants and pulls them down as he drives him into the mats. The gymnasium falls into a stunned, absolute silence. Cheolgyu lies prone on the floor, utterly humiliated and exposed, while Wu Jin stands over him with the same cold, expressionless face. Internally, Wu Jin is screaming in a panic, realizing he has made a massive mistake because his body moved on its own. He quickly tries to apologize, reaching down to help the stuntman pull his pants back up, but the damage is done. The surrounding team members are whispering in shock, trying to process what they just saw. The martial arts director is the first to break the silence, but his reaction isn't what Wu Jin expected. Instead of anger toward the actor, he turns his fury on Cheolgyu. The director bellows at the stuntman, asking what kind of professional pulls a prank like that on a set. It becomes clear that the veteran staff realized Cheolgyu tried to mess with the rookie, and they are even more impressed that Wu Jin not only noticed the deviation instantly but countered it with a move that perfectly fit the bad kid persona of his character, Jang Yunwoo. They believe the pants-pulling move was a deliberate act of psychological warfare and humiliation used by Wu Jin to punish the stuntman for his lack of professionalism. The director and the action director approach Woo Jin, bowing their heads in a sincere apology for their team's behavior. They are so embarrassed by the incident that they even offer to replace the entire stunt team with an external crew if Woo Jin desires. Woo Jin, still internally confused and feeling the familiar scent of another massive misunderstanding, can only offer a sheepish response, claiming that he roughly knew what was happening. When asked how he could think of such a perfect counter move in a fraction of a second, he simply stays in character, stating that it felt like something his character would do. PD Song is so taken with the raw, gritty realism of the move that he suggests they actually insert the pants-pulling finish into the official choreography for the show. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Los Angeles, the scene shifts to the high-rise offices of the CBC broadcasting station. On the set of The Jamie Show, one of the top 3 talk shows in the United States, the world-famous actress Miley is being interviewed amidst a flurry of camera flashes. When asked about her recent visit to Korea and if anything particularly impressed her, she doesn't hesitate to mention a specific name, Kang Woo-jin. Miley describes Woo-jin to the host, Jamie, as a performer who is truly like an alien. She explains that he possesses top-tier, world-class skills in everything from acting and vocals to cooking and martial arts. Jamie is skeptical, noting he has never heard of this actor, but Miley insists that he check out Woo Jin's social media presence first, pointing out that the actor's subscribers are already rapidly approaching the 10 million mark. As the interview continues, Miley reveals that she is so captivated by his talent that she plans to feature him in a proposal for her upcoming new album and have him star in her next music video. She is determined to build a connection now, so there won't be any issues when the two of them eventually work together on a global stage. Woo Jin's reputation is no longer contained within Korea. The alien actor is officially on the verge of a Hollywood breakthrough. A single mention on a global stage can ignite a wildfire that burns across continents, and for Kang Woo Jin, that spark is lit during an appearance by top Hollywood actress Miley Cara on America's hit talk show, The Jamie Show. When Cara casually mentions Woo Jin's name during her interview, the reaction is instantaneous and explosive, sending shockwaves through the entertainment industry and across social media. This moment marks a turning point as rumors of Woo Jin's Hollywood debut begin to swirl, fueled by Kara's high praise and her puzzling description of him as an alien. The news spreads with terrifying speed, as various American news outlets are quick to report on the interaction. Online platforms are flooded with headlines, ranging from curiosity about how close the two stars are to analysis of Kara's alien comment. One article notes that the global superstar praised Woo Jin after previously appearing on his Kang Woo Jin's alter ego YouTube channel, while another highlights how his recent success at the Blue Dragon Film Awards, sweeping 7 different crowns, even made it onto the US broadcast. An edited clip from The Jamie Show spreads like wildfire across YouTube, and domestic media in Korea buzzes with excitement, racing to jump the gun on what this could mean for the actor's future. Amidst this media chaos, Kang Woo Jin arrives at the airport, preparing to depart for a planned schedule in Japan. The atmosphere is thick with tension and the constant, rhythmic clicking of camera shutters. A massive crowd of reporters has gathered, their lenses trained on Woo Jin as he stands stoically beside his manager. The flashes are blinding, and the air is filled with shouted questions. Reporters press him, asking how he feels about leaving for Japan and if he saw the clip where he was mentioned on The Jamie Show. They are particularly obsessed with Kara's comment, shouting out to ask how he feels about being called an alien. Internally, Woo Jin is overwhelmed, thinking to himself what a mess the situation has become. He briefly considers trying to skip the ordeal entirely, but he realizes that ignoring the press too much wouldn't be good for his public image. He decides he must do what has to be done, and tells the crowd that he will take questions now. The reporters surge forward, hands raised and cameras ready. Woo Jin gestures to a specific reporter to begin. The first question hits immediately, asking if he and Miley Cara are close and private. Woo Jin responds with his trademark bluntness, stating simply that they are not particularly close. When asked if he is currently preparing anything for a Hollywood debut, he provides a short, direct answer. Not at the moment. Woo Jin calls for the next reporter, and the inquiry shifts to his upcoming project in Japan. The reporter notes that he is the first Korean actor to star as the lead in a live-action adaptation of a work by the world-renowned novelist Takikawa Akari. They ask how he feels about this historic opportunity. Internally, Woo Jin's thoughts are much more casual. He feels that it's just whatever, but he catches himself, knowing he should tone down his indifference for the sake of the interview. He looks the reporter in the eye and says that he is not particularly shaken by the role. The answer confuses the press, leading another reporter to ask if he feels any pressure, as the only Korean actor on set. Woo Jin maintains his calm, stoic demeanor and replies that he doesn't really feel pressured. He explains that he has the same mindset now as he did during the Blue Dragon Film Awards, asserting that no matter who he is working with or where the filming takes place, it is all the same to him. It is a statement meant to show professional consistency, but the interpretation by the media is far more aggressive. As his President Choi steps in to announce that Woo Jin has a flight to catch and that the interview is over, the reporters begin to murmur amongst themselves, distorting his words into a bold declaration of war. They wonder aloud if he meant that he is going to crush the Japanese actors during the filming of the project, titled Stranger. They whisper that he is essentially saying he will steamroll the Japanese cast with his superior acting. Woo Jin, however, remains completely oblivious to this misunderstanding. As he walks away, he thinks to himself that his answers were polite enough and had a decent amount of cool guy energy mixed in. He is satisfied with his performance, unaware that headlines are already being written claiming he plans to dominate his international colleagues. The impact of the interview is immediate. Articles are published featuring a close-up of Woo Jin's calm, almost cold expression, with captions stating that he intends to steamroll the Japanese actors with his acting as he departs for the Stranger filming. The ripples caused by these words are felt even before he touches down in Japan. When Woo Jin finally arrives at Tokyo Haneda Airport, he is greeted by a blast of freezing winter air and an even larger, more frenetic crowd than the one he left behind in Korea. As he walks through the terminal with his President Choi, he is stunned by the sheer number of camera flashes. He initially thinks he is used to the attention, but the scale of the Japanese media presence is overwhelming. He wonders why there seem to be even more reporters than usual. His President Choi is visibly panicked, looking at his phone and seeing the controversial headlines already circulating in Japan. The Japanese media has latched onto his steamroll comment, framing it as excessive confidence that has sparked a national controversy. Reporters shout in Japanese, their voices a blur of aggressive questions and insults that Woo Jin cannot fully comprehend, though he senses the hostility in their tone. He asks his President Choi why the questions sound so aggressive. The President Choi tells him to simply ignore them, explaining that they are riled up and that most of them represent bottom-tier media outlets anyway. Watching his President Choi's angry expression, Woo Jin realizes that his manager is actually more upset about the situation than he is. Woo Jin decides that making excuses or trying to explain himself would look ridiculous and wouldn't fit his cool concept, so he chooses to let it slide. He activates what he calls his inordinary citizen buff, maintaining a neutral, unbothered expression as he pushes through the crowd. The context of the situation is heavy. In Japan, Stranger is considered an incredibly important project, involving legendary director Kyotaro and the world-renowned novelist Takikawa Akari. The fact that a Korean actor was cast in the lead role had already caused significant discussion, and Woo Jin's perceived arrogance in the pre-departure interview has only made the atmosphere more chaotic. The President Choi recognizes the need to slowly change public perception, and he hopes to start that process with the upcoming fan signing event. As they discuss the logistics, the President Choi mentions that they originally invited 300 fans to the signing. Woo Jin thinks back to his previous events in Korea and figures that handling 300 people should be fine. However, the President Choi's expression shifts to one of shock as he looks at the latest reports from the venue. He tells Woojin that there aren't just 300 people, there are over 1,000. While 300 were chosen on a first-come, first-served basis, another 700 fans showed up anyway, desperate just to catch a glimpse of the actor. The crowd gathered outside the venue is massive and passionate, holding signs with Woojin's name and cheering loudly. The President Choi is overwhelmed by the skyrocketing popularity, noting that it is a bit much to handle. He suggests that while it will be impossible to give everyone an autograph, perhaps a quick greeting to the fans outside would be appropriate. Woojin looks at the crowd and feels a genuine sense of gratitude that so many people came to see him. He remembers a video he once saw about the importance of fan service, which argued that while a meeting might only last a few minutes for the celebrity, the memory lasts a lifetime for the fans. Inspired by this, Woojin turns to his President Choi and proposes something unexpected. He wants to sing the OST from his project, Male Friend, for the fans. The President Choi is stunned by the suggestion, but Woojin insists, feeling bad about just giving a quick greeting to people who traveled so far. He reasons that given the conditions of the convention hall, singing would be the most appropriate way to show his appreciation. He decides that performing 2 songs, the Male Friend, OST and one of his popular YouTube covers, should be enough. The President Choi agrees that it's not a bad idea, as it would create a fan meeting vibe, and he asks if Woojin's voice is up to the task. Woojin confidently replies that 2 songs won't be a problem. To ensure the original 300 invited fans still feel special, the President Choi plans to give them exclusive gifts, and then bring the outside fans in after the official signing is over. A smirk crosses the President Choi's face as he realizes how much this gesture will improve Woojin's image. The performance is a resounding success. Woojin stands on stage with a microphone, his voice filling the hall as he sings with emotion. The fans are transfixed, many of them holding up their phones to record the moment. One fan with bright pink hair is shown with wide, teary eyes, completely moved by the experience. Headlines quickly shift from controversy to praise, reporting that Kang Woojin performed an unscheduled stage for a total of 1,000 fans, demonstrating to the people of Japan exactly what high-quality fan service looks like. Meanwhile, in a lavishly decorated office, a man in a white suit sits behind a large, ornate desk. An assistant informs him that Mr. Kang Woojin's fan signing event concluded successfully. The man, who appears to be an influential figure within the Kasahi group, responds with a satisfied hum. He asks for the timing of the Stranger script reading, which is scheduled for 11 o'clock on the 20th. Since he lent out the Kasahi Tokyo Hotel as the venue for the reading, he feels it is only right that he, as the landlord, offers his greetings. He expresses an eagerness to meet Woojin soon, hinting that he also has a specific proposal he wants to make to the actor. As the day of the script reading approaches, Woojin is shown sitting in a quiet space, focused intently on the documents in front of him. His expression is serious and determined, far removed from the chaos of the airport or the excitement of the fan signing. He looks at the Stranger script, his thoughts singular and driven. He hopes that the day of the script reading comes quickly, ready to let his acting speak for itself and silence the noise of the media once and for all. As many of you know, my previous channel was taken down. I've started a new channel, so I kindly request you all to subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. Thank you for supporting me. The atmosphere inside the Kashihi Tokyo Hotel is electric, the air thick with the hum of anticipation and the rapid-fire clicking of camera shutters. A crowd of reporters and industry professionals has gathered, their whispers filling the opulent venue. They discuss the sheer scale of the project, noting that for the script reading to be held at such a prestigious location, the rumors about the Kashihi Group being the financial backer must be true. Cameras flash relentlessly as the attendees speculate, hoping for a glimpse of the heavy hitters involved. Amidst the sea of suits and formal wear, the arrival of writer Takikawa Akari draws immediate attention, confirming the high profile of the day's event. Suddenly, a hush falls over the crowd, replaced by a wave of shocked gasps. The The sea of people parts as a distinguished older man with silver hair and a meticulously groomed beard strides down the red carpet. It is Chairman Yoshimura Hideki, a titan of industry. His presence commands immediate respect, and the sheer disbelief of the onlookers is palpable. He walks with a heavy, rhythmic gait, flanked by his security detail. Director hurries forward to greet him, asking if he has been well. The chairman, maintaining a polite but regal demeanor, thanks the director for coming. Writer thanks chairman for the opportunity to lend the venue. Chairman humbly adds that he is a huge fan of the writer's work, calling it an honor to meet them. Woojin enters the room. He offers a sincere apology to the room, explaining that he is a bit late due to the heavy Tokyo traffic. Just as the tension from the chairman's arrival begins to settle, as Woojin steps into the lobby, Chairman Hideki's eyes lock onto him. To the astonishment of everyone present, the chairman breaks away from the other dignitaries and walks directly toward the young Korean actor. He announces that he has been waiting for him. The onlookers are baffled, whispering furiously among themselves. Why would the chairman of the Kashihi group be waiting specifically for a Korean actor? Woojin, however, is internally confused. He stares at the older man, his expression blank. In his mind, he wonders who this old man is, feeling a nagging sense of familiarity, but unable to place him. He questions if this man is perhaps a member of the production staff, which would explain why he claimed to be waiting. Unaware of Woojin's internal confusion, Chairman Hideki apologizes again for the traffic and introduces himself, expressing what a pleasure it is to finally meet Kang Woojin. He compliments Woojin, noting that his Japanese is even more fluent in person than it sounded on television. He reveals that he truly enjoyed watching Woojin perform sign language. This specific detail sparks a realization in Woojin's mind. Sign language? He realizes the man must have watched the Teo Talk show. Before he can process this further, the chairman leans in close, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for Woojin. He confesses that his grandson is a huge fan of Woojin, to the point where the actor has become the boy's dream. With a warm, grandfatherly smile that softens his sharp features, Hideki tells Woojin that he changed his grandson's life and thanks him, stating simply that the child is his everything. Woojin stands there, blinking, his internal monologue running wild. He thinks, "Wait, just like that without any context?" Before the conversation can continue, director steps in to facilitate introductions, formally presenting the silver-haired man as Chairman Yoshimura Hideki of the Kashihi Group, the very man who was kind enough to lend them the hotel. The realization hits Woojin like a lightning bolt. He finally remembers seeing the man's face in a news article. He thinks it is a bit surreal to have the old man from the news standing right in front of him. The director, sensing the time constraints, kindly suggests that Woojin go and greet the other actors for now. As Woojin bows politely and walks away, promising to see him later, the chairman watches him go, his eyes narrowing slightly with a look of deep intrigue and satisfaction. Woojin makes his way to the long conference table where the other cast members are seated. He feels the weight of their gazes. Everyone is staring at him, and he finds the attention a bit much. He takes his seat and begins the round of introductions. He greets Manako Saku, Uramatsu Mifuyu, and Ajimoto Yasuda. Internally, Woojin is overwhelmed, thinking that he should just focus on their roles because he cannot possibly memorize all their names right now. Finally, he turns to a blonde woman seated across from him. She introduces herself as Nakaho Kimi, playing the role of Misaki Toka, and says she looks forward to working with him. Woojin pauses. He stares at her. His eyes lose their casual warmth and become dead, blunt, and completely devoid of emotion. He simply stares. The silence stretches, becoming uncomfortable. Kimi flinches under his gaze, sweat forming on her brow. She stammers, asking what is wrong. Woojin does not blink. He continues to look at her with that unsettling, piercing emptiness. Kimi wonders why he is staring at her with such a blunt gaze. The tension is broken only by the director's voice, announcing that they should settle down and begin the reading in 10 minutes. As Woojin turns away, Kimi is left bewildered, wondering what just happened. The scene shifts into the mental landscape of the script reading. The title card flashes. The adapted version of The Strange Sacrifice of a Stranger. The story begins. Scene 1. Inside a classroom, several students are bullying a male student. Woojin begins his narration, his voice taking on a somber tone as he describes the setting. This is a revenge drama centered around Iota Kiyoshi, the character played by Kang Woojin. Kiyoshi is a Zainichi Korean who was bullied relentlessly in high school for being gloomy. In the visualization of the scene, shadowy figures surround Kiyoshi, pulling at his clothes and mocking him. Yet, Kiyoshi never reacts to any of the abuse. Instead, he behaves like a broken robot, stoic and unfeeling. This lack of reaction only serves to incite further bullying from his tormentors. Then, a voice cuts through the darkness. A female student appears, the only one who ever protected Kiyoshi. It is Misaki Toka. She shouts at the bullies to stop, asking if they really find this fun. In the reading room, Nakaho Kimi looks up from his script. She asks, "Kiyoshi, are you okay?" But she isn't asking as Nakaho Kimi. Woojin is looking at her with the eyes of Kiyoshi. Nakaho Kimi freezes. She recognizes the look in his eyes immediately. It is the exact same look he gave her earlier during the introductions. A chill runs through her as she realizes that he wasn't being rude before. He was already Kiyoshi from that very moment. She wonders how he could be looking at her exactly like the character Toka would look at Kiyoshi. She is stunned by the speed of his immersion. How did he get into character that fast without anyone noticing? Woojin, fully embodied as Kiyoshi, replies softly, "I'm fine." Through Toka, the indifferent and robotic Kiyoshi began to feel human respect and concern for the first time. The visual narrative shows Kiyoshi's eye, reflected with the golden image of Toka, the only warmth in his cold world. Because of her intervention, the bullying stopped for a short while. The scene depicts Kiyoshi and Toka sitting together on a green staircase, eating lunch from bento boxes. It was a brief but peaceful time. But Kiyoshi didn't know. The narrative takes a dark turn as the background shifts to a scratched, chaotic black and white. He didn't know that the target of the bullying had shifted to Toka. The scene shows Toka with a bandage on her face, smiling sadly at Kiyoshi. She tells him, "I don't regret meeting you." Kiyoshi looks at her, his expression unreadable, unaware of the depth of her suffering. Suddenly, the timeline jumps. Kiyoshi is standing alone, looking out at the terrace of school. He says, "It's time for lunch." But then, right before his eyes, a bully came on the terrace to look from the above and said, "Kiyoshi, did you see that?" He laughed and said that he should have come sooner as he was looking down from the terrace. Kiyoshi moved behind of that bully. His hand raised and he pushed the bully down the terrace. The scream tears from his throat, a raw, guttural sound of pure agony. Ag. The scene shifts again. Kiyoshi is staring at his own hands. He whispers, "I regret it, Toka." Someone screams again, a terrifying shriek that echoes through the school hallways. "Kaya, walk!" The students in the hallway freeze. Silhouettes of panicked teenagers surround him. Someone yells for the police. Someone screams in terror. Kiyoshi stands amidst the chaos, the first person to witness the tragedy. Time passes. The aftermath is quiet and suffocating. Kiyoshi is back in the classroom. Students whisper behind his back, wondering what on earth happened. Kiyoshi, packing his bag, simply replies, "It's okay." He walks away, the sound of his footsteps heavy. The scene focuses on a notebook lying on a desk. It is covered in red scribbles. A hand picks up a pen. The sound of writing scratches against the paper. The name, Sumira, is crossed out with a violent, dark line. Kiyoshi stares at the notebook. A caption reads, 9 people left. He pauses, the pen hovering over the paper. He thinks to himself, "Not right now." He acknowledges his limitations. One person is fine, but taking on all 9 at once is impossible. He lacks strength, intelligence, and experience. He tells himself that he must become a stranger to the world. He must wait until no one remembers him quietly. Whether it takes 1 year or 5. The panel shows Kiyoshi's eyes. And when I have faded from everyone's minds, he thinks, when I have everything I need, that's when it'll begin. A flash forward reveals a grim scene. Police tape cordons off a crime scene. A body outline is chalked onto the pavement. A police officer stands guard. The narration promises that there will be many victims, and it will be a very strange sacrifice. Finally, we see Kiyoshi's face close up. His golden eyes are sharp, cold, and utterly detached. He clarifies his motivation. It isn't hatred, nor is it bloodlust. He looks out the window, wrapping a bandage around his arm. It's simply, he thinks, defining the nature of his vengeance. Homework. To him, this is not an act of passion. He was merely doing what needed to be done.
The script reading for The Unknown Parasite is underway. Woo Jin, fully immersed in the character of Kiyoshi, sits motionless in the center of the frantic energy of the room. His gaze is fixed vacantly as if staring at a blackboard, while the narration describes the chaos of his world. According to the manuscript, the deaths of 2 students plunged the world into chaos, and the academy began a desperate struggle to restore normalcy. While 9 individuals on Kiyoshi's list either transferred or withdrew, Kiyoshi remained indifferent. Instead, he committed himself to a long-term stratagem, meticulously gathering knowledge for 1 year, then 2, until 5 years had slipped away. In the present, Woo Jin's voice cuts through the silence, announcing the commencement of his plan. The narration reveals that while the world allowed his existence to fade into obscurity, the wheels of his design were already turning. Woo Jin, with eyes glowing a spectral green in the visual metaphor of the scene, declares that he shall initiate the second sacrifice. His target is one of the 9 from his assignment, Konakyama Ginzo. The scene shifts to describe this target. Konakyama Ginzo possesses a refined and radiant exterior, a talent for captivation, and is the one most distant from Kiyoshi. He has established a home and marriage, yet remains unable to relinquish his carnal depravities, harboring a multitude of ignominious secrets. Woo Jin's narration turns darker as he explains his choice. He has chosen Ginzo precisely because his macabre immolation will command as much attention as his striking appearance. Kiyoshi plans to cast a shadow over the remaining 8 by sowing discord within Ginzo's household. The observers in the room are spellbound. The president watches with sweat beading on his forehead, realizing that this performance cannot be categorized as mere acting. It is as if the man himself has undergone a total transformation. He wonders if all thespians are this formidable, but quickly corrects himself. Kang Woo Jin is a rarity. While other performers deliver conventional portrayals, Woo Jin possesses an overwhelming magnetism that seizes one's gaze instantly, dominating the room and placing the audience under a trance. It is an invaluable gift that transcends simple charisma. President finally grasps why director Kaio Taro was so fixated on this actor. He never imagined he would find himself so enthralled, perhaps already lost to the performance. Suddenly, the reading reaches a break point. The script calls for a fade out, and a brief intermission is announced. In the blink of an eye, the suffocating aura vanishes, President Choi speaking into his phone about a delivery. Taking advantage of the break, the president rises from his seat. This is Chairman Heidke of the Kasahi Group. He approaches the back of the room where Choi Seongjin, the president of BW Entertainment, is standing. Seongjin is currently stressed, running a hand through his hair as he checks his phone. He laments that BW Entertainment is becoming too small a pond to contain talents like Ha-yeon and Woo Jin. He is frustrated by investors seeking to reduce him to a figurehead and pull his strings. He wishes they would refrain from imposing stifling terms, but his train of thought is interrupted by a voice asking for his pardon. Chairman Heidke, accompanied by his assistant Ryuri who facilitates the translation, politely asks if he is President Choi Seongjin and requests a moment of his time. Seongjin turns, flanked by his own team, and is stunned to recognize the man. He internally screams in shock, realizing that Chairman Heidke, a titan of industry, has personally sought him out. Through his translator, Heidke offers high praise. He states that Kang Woo Jin's performance was truly profound and that he has never witnessed such a display of acting in his life. He perceives boundless potential in the actor, calling his worth immeasurable. Consequently, Heidke presents a staggering proposal. He desires the Kasahi Group to enlist Kang Woo-jin as a brand ambassador for several of their subsidiaries. Seongjin's eyes widen behind his glasses, but the offer doesn't stop there. Heidke adds that, independent of the Kasahi Group, he would like to offer a personal investment. He asks for Seongjin's thoughts on the matter. Seongjin is floored. The chairman of a prominent Japanese conglomerate has personally decided to fund BW Entertainment. His mind races, suspicious of the timing. Kasahi Group is Chairman Heidke's domain, so surely there must be a correlation. He wonders if this reeks of a setup. He questions how Heidke is even aware that BW Entertainment is looking to scale up. Realizing that pressing for an exhaustive explanation might appear unseemly, Seongjin forces himself to regain his composure. He thanks Heidke for the offer, but states that such a significant decision cannot be made in an instant. He admits to being overwhelmed by this turn of events. However, he boldly asks what sparked Heidke's interest in BW Entertainment. Heidke smiles warmly and answers without hesitation. It is entirely due to actor Kang Woo-jin. After witnessing him firsthand today, he was left without a doubt. He explains that Woo-jin's craft, allure, and palpable aura are undeniable. When Heidke encounters someone destined to ascend as a global luminary, he simply cannot stand idle. He predicts that in the very near future, Woo-jin's name will resonate across the globe. Seongjin listens, stunned. He suspected Woo-jin was the catalyst, but to hear such lavish praise is overwhelming. He wonders if Heidke truly possesses such a visionary eye for talent. Heidke then drops a cryptic bombshell. He reveals that this isn't his sole motivation. He states that while Mr. Kang Woo-jin may be unaware, Heidke is indebted to him. This revelation sends Seongjin's mind spinning. A debt. Did they share a connection from long ago? Pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place for Seongjin. He recalls Woo-jin's stoicism and bravery during the unknown parasite incident, likely a real-world event involving the actor. He realizes that Chairman Heidke's sudden appearance and investment offer wasn't because of director Kyotaro or writer Akari. It was all because of Woo-jin. Despite the shock, Seongjin maintains his professionalism. Heidke tells Choi that he has no intention of treating this matter with levity and asks if the Choi could formally provide a business strategy or prospectus so they might proceed with a positive outlook. Choi agrees, promising to convey his sentiments as soon as possible. Heidke adds he would prefer if this dialogue remained strictly confidential between them. With the business discussion concluded, Heidke prepares to leave. Seongjin asks if he is certain he wishes to depart before the conclusion of the script reading. Heidke bows slightly, stating that his primary objective was to observe Kang Woo-jin in the flesh, and that has sufficed. He takes his leave, leaving Seongjin staring at his retreating back, consumed by curiosity about what transpired between Heidke and Woo-jin in the past to warrant such a staggering sum. Seongjin looks back toward the reading table, asking himself, "Just who on earth are you, Kang Woo-jin?" Meanwhile, Woo-jin stands silently near the table, arms crossed, looking cool and mysterious. In reality, his internal monologue is far less dramatic. He is simply admiring the hotel's interior, noting that every corner is dripping with gold-gilded opulence. He is completely zoned out, his mind an utter void of thought, maintaining his usual habit of disassociation when not acting. Later that afternoon, the script reading for The Unknown Parasite finally reaches its conclusion. Applause breaks out as the exhausted actors and staff declare excellent work. The tension breaks, and the room fills with the murmur of relieved voices. Everyone is drained. The other actors glance toward Woo-jin. Director thinks there is no doubt in anyone's mind that selecting him was the correct path. The look on everyone's faces is proof enough. Even if there is some friction or dissent, or if some actors depart due to the pressure, it will merely expose the inadequacies of their own talent. If others are galvanized by his performance, it will be the greater victory. Fortunately, not a single performer causes a stir with unprofessional conduct. Director looks at Woo-jin. He is eager to see what this monster of a character will manifest on the day principal photography officially begins. As they head out, Choi phone buzzes. He answers, addressing the caller as director on Gabok. The scene reveals the caller is indeed the director, who asks if he has reached Japan already and confirms the script reading has concluded. He asks if Woo-jin's schedule allows for a meeting after 8:00 p.m. The director, holding the phone with a sly smile, then drops a significant invitation. He asks if Woo-jin would care to attend the Tokyo International Film Festival, accompanied, of course, by him. The narrative begins by establishing the prestige of the setting. The Tokyo International Film Festival stands as one of Japan's most illustrious short film festivals, its reputation akin to Korea's own Misensin Festival. The guest list is a veritable who's who of the industry, featuring Japan's most iconic directors and thespians, alongside numerous figures of global renown. Director An Gabok, a member of the festival's jury, is on the phone in the middle of the event. He explains that today is the final day and invites Kang Woo-jin to a small party taking place later that evening. On the other end of the line, President Choi Seong-jin takes the call. He turns to Woo-jin, explaining that the most influential titans of the film and entertainment industries have converged at this location. He suggests that it would be quite a spectacle if Woo-jin were to make an appearance, asking for his thoughts. The scene shifts to the party venue, buzzing with anticipation. As guests mingle over drinks and hors d'oeuvres, whispers circulate through the crowd. People are aware that Woo-jin is arriving, and they speculate that his entrance will certainly be interesting. Outside, Seong-jin is nervous, adjusting his glasses and wiping sweat from his brow. He tells himself he just needs to ask Mr. Woo-jin right now. He relays the details to the actor. It is a social gathering at a Japanese film festival. Woo-jin, with his hands in his pockets, asks if it is some sort of gala. He admits it sounds a little annoying, but he is intrigued. Specifically, he is interested because they mention the attendance of so many elite Japanese actors. He sees this as a chance to see how he truly measures up to the Messian scene. With a resolve that contradicts his internal reluctance, Woo-jin says, "Well, there's no reason to refuse." Seong-jin signals okay with his hand, promising to inform the director immediately. Suddenly, director Kayotaro appears, having overheard the conversation. He asks if Woo-jin is also planning to attend the festival. Woo-jin asks if the director is taking part as well. Kayotaro confirms that he is, which stands to reason given his status as a legendary figure in Japanese cinema. Kayotaro smiles warmly and suggests they go together. The location for the Tokyo International Film Festival is the Roppongi Hills Mori Tower, situated in Minato City, Tokyo. The towering skyscraper dominates the night skyline, lit up in vibrant colors. Beneath it, a red carpet event is in full swing with photographers, flashes popping incessantly. Woo-jin steps out of a car, dressed in a long brown coat over a sharp suit. As he walks the carpet, the crowd murmurs in awe. They comment that his gaze is ice cold, confirming rumors about him being quite arrogant. However, another observer counters that it isn't arrogance. To him, Woo-jin has the aura of a man destined to become a legend. Internally, the legend is having a very different experience. Woo-jin looks around at the massive crowd and thinks that this is Roppongi Tower. It's truly colossal. He observes the massive crowd and thinks that honestly they all just seem like tourists to him. Inside the venue, director An Gabok approaches with a glass of wine. He greets Woo-jin, noting that he has arrived. He also acknowledges director Kayotaro, mentioning it has been a while. Kayotaro leans in to whisper to Woo-jin, pointing out that everyone is stealing glances at him while trying their best to look indifferent. He notes that whether driven by intrigue or a sense of competition, Woo-jin has certainly left quite a mark. Woo-jin replies coolly that he didn't set out to do so. An Gabok laughs, remarking that Woo-jin looks as indifferent as always. Woo-jin's attention, however, is drifting. While maintaining his stoic facade, he stares intently at a plate of sushi, thinking that it looks absolutely mouthwatering. Director An interrupts his culinary daydream with a serious proposition. He mentions hearing that Woo-jin had a matter to discuss, but then asks a shocking question. How would you feel about serving on the judging panel for the Leech auditions? He adds that it would be an immense help to have him there. Woo-jin's internal reaction is immediate panic. A judge, me. What on earth is he thinking? His mind screams, accompanied by a mental image of his face contorted in shock. Externally, he remains silent. Director An continues, explaining his reasoning. He knows some may scrutinize Woo-jin's level of experience, but to him, the caliber of his acting is its own justification. He argues that it is difficult to measure, but the depth of Woo-jin's self-taught talent feels as though it spans 10, perhaps 15 years of mastery. Therefore, it is senseless to try to label him as either a novice or a veteran. Director An looks at Woo-jin with admiration, calling him an entirely unprecedented phenomenon. Woo-jin asks if it would be acceptable if he only sat and observed. Director Kayotaro chimes in, encouraging him by saying that simply showing the kind of presence he had at the Blue Dragon Awards would be more than enough. Woo-jin, trapped by his own reputation, maintains his composure. He tells director On that he will give it some thought and check if his schedule is available. On laughs, expressing his gratitude. As the conversation continues, the camera pans to other influential figures in the room. A woman with glasses and a man with orange hair are observing Woo Jin from a distance. The text identifies them as Megan Stone, casting director for Last Kill 3. They wonder how Woo Jin found himself in the company of such cinematic giants. Megan notes that even Joseph has been curious about him lately. She speculates it might be because of his extraordinary talent, specifically mentioning that his prowess in martial arts was breathtaking. However, she points out that they have still never witnessed his acting firsthand. Man with orange hair smiles and mentions a rumor. He heard that director George and others claimed they were so intimidated by Woo Jin's performance that they practically fled. Megan is skeptical, asking if fleeing is even possible and calling it far-fetched. However, she touches her chin thoughtfully and decides that, as she thought, she simply has to witness it for herself. Man with orange hair adds one more thing. He intends to request a background dossier on Kang Woo Jin. The scene briefly shifts. Los Angeles. Joseph answers a phone call asking, "Is that so?" I appreciate the update. It is revealed to be a producer connected to the Last Kill 3 project. He is told that Kang Woo Jin is currently working on director Kyotaro's project, BSS, and asks if he is attending the festival simply because he was already in the area. The producer remarks that he can hardly believe Megan is going to see Woo Jin's acting with her own eyes. She is really lucky. He admits that he, too, wishes to cross paths with him again very soon. To make that happen, the producer decides he needs to make some preliminary arrangements. He asks his contact if they still have the recording of Kang Woo Jin's screen test for Last Kill 3. He instructs them to forward that video to a famous Korean YouTuber. His colleague is shocked, asking if that material isn't strictly confidential. The producer explains that this was just something director George Mendes and the production team said to salvage their pride. However, from his perspective as a producer, he sees a clear advantage in making it public. He believes that since Korea is a juggernaut of culture, this move can simultaneously bolster the project's profile and elevate Woo Jin's standing. He predicts a sensation like this will surely drive up his market value as well. With a confident smile, he declares that as a producer, he fully intends to collaborate with him at some point. Therefore, for the sake of Kang Woo Jin's future, he shall clear the path for his journey to Hollywood. Back in the car in Japan, Woo Jin is slumped in his seat, utterly drained. He groans internally, I'm so exhausted, Tilda, I just want to return to the hotel." He thinks that perhaps agreeing to this gala wasn't the best idea. He checks his phone and sees a notification from our table group chat with 24 unread messages. He realizes he forgot that the debut episode of our table premiered yesterday. He blames his missing it on his hectic schedule in Japan. He opens the chat and is stunned by the numbers. The overall viewership rating for the first episode hit 15.6%, which is incredible. The messages also mention a clip of the Miley Cara episode that was uploaded yesterday. Woo Jin checks a video titled Duet Plus What Do You Want to Eat? Avatar cooking guest, Miley Cara Kang Woo Jin. It has racked up 9.67 million views in just one day. Woo Jin sweats thinking, whoa, this is insane. These view counts are astronomical. Is this for real? He reads comments in English singing its praises. He smiles to himself, admitting that it really feels like he is blossoming into a global sensation. It's exhilarating, though he humbly admits that it's mostly because of Kara. President Choi Seong-jin interrupts his thoughts, entering the car and asking if he has been waiting long. He excitedly announces that they have finally locked in an investor. He was delayed because he was finalizing things over the phone. He reveals they received an offer for Woo Jin to be a brand ambassador for the Kasahi Group, and they will be meeting with them shortly. Woo Jin is startled. What? That conglomerate owned by the old chairman I met today. He thinks. Seong-jin clarifies that the new investor is the Kasahi Group itself. Since they are keeping it confidential, the public narrative will be that Woo Jin was chosen as their new commercial model, specifically to bolster his activities within Japan. As for the advertisement contracts, he will likely be finalizing deals with 3 of their subsidiaries. Seong-jin notes that naturally the compensation will be quite handsome. Woo Jin sits in stunned silence, realizing he has the full backing of a major conglomerate. Seong-jin turns back, marveling at the situation. Woo Jin wonders when on earth Choi managed to reel in such a massive investor, noting that the president is truly a force to be reckoned with. Choi realizes that this is all because of Woo Jin's connection with Chairman Heidke that he didn't know about. Seong-jin continues, pointing out that the filming for the commercials will likely coincide with the BSS production schedule. Woo-jin sighs, realizing his schedule is absolutely crammed. It seems his professional life in Japan won't be a walk in the park either. However, he reasons that it is still better to be overwhelmed with work than to have none at all. As the car drives on, Woo-jin focuses on his immediate future. He suspects the news of the investment will probably incite even more malicious comments over here in Japan. He adjusts his coat, thinking, "Not that it bothers me in the slightest, of course." There is something else he needs to focus on. Rehearsals for BSS shoot begin tomorrow, marking the unofficial start of production. He looks at his hand, clenching it slightly. He needs to showcase his acting to the sea of Japanese actors and staff. Woo-jin stares at the script in his lap. He tells himself it's not exactly pressure, but he can't be swept away by them as the sole Korean actor on set. A determined smile crosses his face as he resolves himself. He would much rather be the best than settle for mediocrity. Misunderstandings be damned, he thinks. It's best that I see my declaration of war through to its end.
If you like this manhwa, then subscribe to Manhwa-kun. Like the video and share it with your friends. See you in the next episode.
A fog-drenched village by the water sets a somber mood as the production of a highly anticipated film reaches a critical juncture. On the docks, the atmosphere is electric with professional tension. The director's voice cuts through the evening air as he shouts commands into a megaphone, calling for the team to check the monitors and move camera 2 back to adjust the frame. The surrounding staff members are caught in a flurry of activity, their whispers carrying a mix of excitement and anxiety. They discuss the immense hype surrounding the day's shoot, noting that the expectations are at an all-time high purely because of the presence of the lead actor, Kang Woo-jin. There's a palpable weight on everyone to produce something of such high quality that it satisfies both the cynical media and the incredibly protective, die-hard fans of the original source material. Slightly removed from the chaos, Kang Woo-jin takes a deep breath and exhales a long, weary sigh. He tells himself that there is no point in stressing over the comments or the pressure building around the set. He needs to focus. Alongside a co-star, he begins the long walk down the wooden pier, their figures slowly being swallowed by the thick, artificial stage fog rolling off the water. As they step onto the small wooden vessel, Woo-jin's co-star offers a quiet word of gratitude, admitting that he is feeling significantly on edge. He notes the daunting nature of filming an opening scene with such a massive crowd present. Turning his attention toward Woo-jin, he asks if the pressure isn't getting to him as well, emphasizing that the expectations from both the media and the public are at an all-time high. Woo-jin simply meets his gaze and dismisses the notion, stating that he is there for the sole purpose of acting. The co-star is left visibly stunned by Woo-jin's uncanny level of professional composure. The director calls for standby, Woo-jin expressing a brief moment of professional courtesy by saying he looks forward to working with them. The co-star offers a simple, polite reply before the director raises his megaphone one last time, shouting for the start of the take. The transition in Woo-jin is instantaneous and jarring. As the camera begins to roll, he feels himself slipping away, replaced by the character of Iota Kiyoshi from his previous work, BSS. He mentally narrates the process, describing how he is stepping into this world now, a world defined by a hollow void, a sense of utter futility, and a palpable sense of emptiness. The director, watching through the monitor, is visibly shaken by the shift in the atmosphere. He is stunned by how an actor can project a sense of absolute nothingness so effortlessly, wondering how it is even possible to manifest such a defined aura of the void in a living person. Woo-jin stands on the boat, his eyes dark and vacant, appearing as a man who has lost everything. The narrative within the film, titled The Return of an Unforeseen Disaster, focuses on the plight of the story's second victim, a man named Kanekiyama Ginzo. The script provides the grim background for this character, explaining that for over a month, Ginzo was systematically stalked. His darkest secrets were unearthed and delivered to him one by one through a series of anonymous burner phones. With his company and family effectively held hostage by this invisible tormentor, Ginzo was slowly pushed to the absolute brink of his sanity, while his wife began to harbor deep doubts about him. The peace of his daily life was shattered to the point where he could no longer function at his job, eventually turning to heavy alcohol consumption to numb the relentless, extreme anxiety. The scene being filmed depicts the moment Ginzo wakes up on a swaying boat after passing out from a massive drinking binge. Ginzo, played by the veteran actor Mr. Ujimoto, clutches his head in pain as a voice suddenly calls out to him, asking if he is awake. A figure shrouded in a sinister green mist stands over him, and Ginzo recoils in terror. He stammers out a series of frantic questions, asking what this place is and who the man standing before him could be. The antagonist, played by Woo Jin, leans in with a terrifyingly calm demeanor. He asks Ginzo if he really doesn't recognize him, reminding him that they were classmates after all. He adds a chilling detail, stating that he has been the one waking Ginzo up every single morning with his harassment. Ginzo points a trembling finger at the man, his eyes wide with a realization that brings a fresh wave of horror. He begins to ask if this man is truly the one who has been sending those strange, threatening messages, but he is cut short by the antagonist's suffocating presence. Ginzo looks toward another shadowy figure on the boat. Asking who that guy is, Woojin looms over Ginzo, but the antagonist simply tells him that he will find out eventually. For now, he wants to introduce Ginzo to the man who will be taking care of him. The antagonist's words are cold and predatory as he tells Ginzo to surrender his body to this stranger, implying a brutal fate involving a man who supposedly had a lover while in prison. The psychological weight of the performance becomes too much for the veteran Ujimoto. In the scene, he lets out a desperate, guttural scream as he is grabbed by the throat and pinned down. He gasps for air, begging for his life and promising to do anything if he is spared. He frantically guesses at the antagonist's identity, asking if he is the husband of a woman named Tsukasa. Woojin, maintaining his terrifyingly dead-eyed stare, simply tells him that it was a wrong guess. He leans in close, his voice a low, menacing whisper, asking Ginzo if he truly doesn't remember him or a person named Masaki Toka. At this point, the line between acting and reality blurs for Mr. Ujimoto. He is paralyzed, his mind racing as he realizes he is actually becoming genuinely terrified of the man in front of him. He tries to remind himself that this is just a performance and that he needs to say his lines and move his body, but his vocal cords feel frozen. He manages only a weak, pathetic stutter. Sensing the breakdown in the scene's rhythm, the director finally calls for a cut. He addresses Mr. Ujimoto directly, telling him that while the emotion was present, it was far too over the top. He instructs the veteran to relax, broaden his emotional range, but keep the tone restrained, noting that right now it feels too much like someone who is clearly just acting. Ujimoto looks down, utterly defeated, and offers a quiet word of understanding. In the background, the staff members begin to gossip, with some feeling that Ujimoto wasn't that bad, but realizing that the director's perspective is far more demanding. They are more focused on Woo Jin, noting that his performance didn't feel like acting at all. They are amazed that even when he spoke softly, every single word carried with absolute clarity across the set. The director watches the scene again on the monitor, realizing that Ujimoto is essentially becoming a sacrificial lamb to Woo Jin's overwhelming aura. He knows a movie is only complete when there is chemistry between the stars, and Woo Jin's individual brilliance isn't enough to carry the scene if his co-star is failing. Feeling a deep sense of disappointment in himself, Ujimoto wonders what exactly he is missing and if his acting has always been this subpar. Woo Jin watches him from a distance, noticing that the older man seems short of breath and is struggling to recover. He wonders if it's the cold sea air or perhaps the thick fog from the machines that is making Ujimoto feel ill. Approaching him, Woo Jin suggests that Ujimoto should try to take a slower rhythm between beats. Ujimoto is initially confused, wondering if Woo Jin is telling him he was rushing his lines or leaving too little space between them. Woo Jin clarifies that he is talking about Ujimoto's breathing. He tells the veteran to lift his head and take a deep breath, assuring him that he'll feel better. Ujimoto realizes that Woo Jin isn't criticizing his technique, but is actually giving him a way to stay calm and prevent his emotions from overwhelming his physical body. He offers a genuine smile and thanks Woo Jin, realizing just how impatient he had become, spitting out his lines as if he were being chased. The surrounding staff and other actors are stunned, wondering if the rookie Woo Jin was actually giving pointers to a veteran like Yasuda Ujimoto. Some find it insulting, while others are fascinated by the interaction. The director calls for the scene to start once more. As the take begins, the atmosphere on the boat shifts entirely. Ujimoto delivers his opening line with a new, grounded intensity that shocks everyone watching. The staff murmurs in awe, wondering if Ujimoto has had a spell cast on him, but the director knows better. He watches the monitor with a satisfied smirk, realizing that Woojin's advice has caused Ujimoto's acting to do a total 180. He is awestruck by the realization that Woojin has the power to not only dominate a scene, but to actively elevate the performance of his co-stars. As the chapter draws to a close, the director reflects on how Woojin has already reached a level of talent that transcends being a mere actor. Meanwhile, Woojin is shown in a small comedic beat, feeling winded and realizing he needs to follow his own advice and watch his breathing. He remains completely unaware that his simple attempt to be helpful has sparked yet another massive misunderstanding about the true depth of his genius. The arduous first scene for the production titled BSS has finally wrapped up, leaving the crew in a state of collective exhaustion and awe. On a rocky shore shrouded in a thick gray mist, a long-haired director leans over his monitors, his face etched with deep concentration as he calls out a resounding, "Okay," to signify the end of the take. Surrounding him are numerous silhouette-like crew members and heavy camera equipment, all positioned on the dark, jagged ground overlooking a vast expanse of blue water. The director contemplates the footage, thinking that they should likely go with take 5 or take 6. He notes that although this is only the first scene, the lead actor is giving off a vibration entirely different from his initial frantic energy. He observes that Ginzo is perfectly projecting the aura of a fragile adult desperately masking a child's inner terror. The perspective shifts to the actual performance captured on the water, where two small wooden boats drift in the chilling fog. Inside one of the boats, a man with dark, messy hair and a haunted expression sits across from his target. This is the character Iyota Kiyoshi, played by Woojin. He stares intensely at the man opposite him, a character named Ginzo, and asks if he remembers someone named Toka, specifically Misaki Toka. Ginzo, trembling and looking utterly broken, stammers out the name in confusion. Kiyoshi's gaze remains cold and unwavering as he confirms the identity, his voice dripping with a quiet, lethal calm. Ginzo's eyes widen in realization as he remembers the name, but he quickly tries to deflect, asking if Kiyoshi is actually who he thinks he is. He nervously questions if Kiyoshi is doing all of this because of what happened in the past, desperately trying to laugh it off as a mere prank. Kiyoshi's expression hardens into a mask of pure shadow, his golden eyes piercing through the gloom. He flatly states the truth that haunts them both. Toka is dead. He recounts how Toka threw herself off a rooftop, but he clarifies that their actions were no different from a group of people physically pushing her to her end. He looks Ginzo directly in the eye and wonders aloud how much of that pushing force belonged to him. Ginzo is internally spiraling into a panic, his thoughts racing as he calls Kiyoshi a lunatic for seeking revenge after all this time. He wonders if this bastard actually knows everything that happened, but he tries to convince himself that it is impossible. He reasons that Toka was such a coward that she definitely wouldn't have gone around talking about their secrets. Desperate to survive the confrontation, Ginzo begins to plead, claiming it is all a big misunderstanding. He admits that the other guys bullied her a little, but he insists that he actually treated her well. He begs for mercy, claiming he feels wronged and that if Toka were still alive, he would have asked the others to spare her. Kiyoshi watches this pathetic display with a look of profound disgust, noting that Ginzo is exactly as smart as he expected. Even in this moment of life-threatening terror, Ginzo is still calculating whether or not Kiyoshi truly knows the full extent of the truth. Kiyoshi tells him to keep playing innocent if he wants, his eyes glowing with a terrifying intensity that makes Ginzo realize this man has completely lost his mind. Ginzo begins to scream for help, his voice echoing across the water as he begs for someone to save him. However, Kiyoshi calmly informs him that there is no one else there. He explains that they are in a desolate fishing village near Chiba, which also happens to be Misaki Toka's hometown. Points out the abandoned buildings in the distance, noting that while developers once tried to turn the place into a tourist spot during the economic bubble decades ago, the project failed when the bubble burst. Now, it is a ghost town where no one ever visits. Kiyoshi further reveals that he has already accounted for Ginzo's disappearance by sending a message to his wife from his phone, ensuring she won't suspect a thing. Kiyoshi reaches out and hands Ginzo a smartphone, telling him to make a call. Ginzo is stunned to see his own phone in Kiyoshi's hand. Kiyoshi identifies the recipient of the call as the owner of a karaoke bar Ginzo visited before coming here, a woman named Horanouchi Amy, who is also one of their 9 classmates. Ginzo is paralyzed with fear, but Kiyoshi gives him a very specific instruction. Just say that Misaki Toka has returned and then hang up immediately. Ginzo, still trying to find a way out, asks if he is really doing this for revenge, pointing out that Kiyoshi was essentially a stranger to Toka in the first place. Kiyoshi simply agrees, stating that he is just doing his job as a stranger. Kiyoshi offers a deal, promising to let Ginzo go home if he makes the call to Amy. Ginzo's eyes light up with a flicker of hope, but it is immediately extinguished when Kiyoshi adds a grim condition. He warns that if Ginzo mentions his current situation or asks for help, he will be dealt with right then and there, and his naked body will be found the next morning. Terrified and shaking, Ginzo promises he has no intention of doing anything of the sort. Kiyoshi reiterates that making the call is the full extent of Ginzo's role, and once it is over, he will be sent home. However, as Ginzo prepares to dial, Kiyoshi's internal narration reveals a dark truth. Returning him alive would be nearly impossible. A menacing, shadowy figure in a purple vest and hat looms behind Ginzo, its face twisted into a demonic, wide-eyed grin. Standing on the deck, the elderly Misaki Shutoku gazes out into the distance, noting that by tomorrow, the detectives will be pursuing Kiyoshi with a desperate, frantic energy. He warns Woojin to remain vigilant and not to let his guard down, regardless of the concealment provided by the dense fog. Kiyoshi turns to meet his eyes, his expression unreadable, and softly tells the man that he didn't need to go to such extremes for his sake, acknowledging the heavy burden Shutoku has chosen to carry. The narrative flashes back to Woojin's character, Kiyoshi, meeting with an older, disheveled man named Misaki Shutoku, Toka's father. After the death of his daughter and the subsequent passing of his wife, Shutoku had been living as a broken man, surrounded by alcohol bottles. Kiyoshi was the one who found him and told him the truth about everything Toka went through at the hands of her classmates. Enraged and consumed by grief, Shutoku decided to join Kiyoshi in his quest for vengeance. Standing on a high stone wall, Shutoku tells Kiyoshi that he wants to see his daughter now. He admits that he needs to keep his mouth shut to leave the detectives in utter confusion, and he confesses that if he stays alive, he won't have the courage to remain silent. He apologizes for leaving such a huge burden on Kiyoshi, calling him his daughter's stranger friend. Just like that, the alliance between the two ended. Back in the present of the film's world, Kiyoshi stands alone in the misty fishing village as the snow begins to fall. Kiyoshi stands solemnly beside the fallen form of Shutoku, his expression a mask of cold calculation as he surveys the scene. He harbors a silent vow to shield the old man from discovery, though he understands that complete concealment is a precarious gamble. Any misstep risked exposing the fact that he was not the only one present in that desolate place. In the heavy, mist-laden air, the spectral shadow of the old man seems to offer a final, ethereal nod to Woojin. "I appreciate it," the spirit whispers, signaling that the alliance is at an end, and it is time for him to walk his own path. He exhales a long breath of white mist, reflecting on the progress of his mission. With Nakayama and Ginzo gone, 2 targets are officially down. On a list of names, the name Nakayama and the name Ginzo are crossed out with a violent red X. Kiyoshi sets his sights on the next victim, Horinouchi Amy, the woman who was caught in the sparks of the firecracker he set off using Ginzo. He stands silently at the edge of a pier, overlooking the dark water as the village remains frozen in time. As the fog begins to clear on the set, the director and the crew are left in a state of shock. The director thinks to himself that Iota Kiyoshi has truly come to life, jumping straight out of the script. He is mesmerized by the depth Woojin has reached in his acting, wondering who else could possibly portray such piercing yet hollow bloodlust. He realizes he is looking at a literal monster in the craft of acting. Suddenly, the silence is broken by the director's enthusiastic shouting as he calls for the cut, leaping to his feet and praising the actors for delivering exactly the type of performance he wanted. Woojin breaks character, his terrifying aura vanishing as he politely thanks the director and the crew for their hard work. The director approaches him, amazed, and mentions how hard Woojin worked. He brings up the fact that Woojin gave advice to his co-star, Mr. Ujimoto, who played the role of Ginzo. Woojin modestly explains that he simply told Ujimoto to take a deep and slow breath because he seemed to be in a dangerous, hyper-focused state during the shoot. The director is floored by this revelation, realizing that such simple technical advice regarding breathing was the perfect answer Ujimoto needed to awaken his performance and prevent a potential accident where an actor might have fainted from the intensity. Nearby, the other actors and extras are whispering among themselves, stunned by the transformation in Ujimoto's acting. Ujimoto, whose character name is Yasuda, remains silent as his colleagues ask if he really received special advice from Woojin. Internally, Ujimoto is reeling from the experience. He realizes that up until now, he thought he could stand out just by using exaggerated acting skills, focusing on execution rather than chemistry. However, in the presence of Kang Woojin, who became the absolute pivot of the scene, Ujimoto felt he had no reason to exist unless he truly became Ginzo. He describes Woojin's presence as overwhelming and admits that, thanks to the advice, he was able to be truly immersed in a role for the first time in his long career. He looks toward Woojin with a mixture of respect and fear, warning that everyone better stay on their toes. He realizes that once someone is caught in the hypnosis called Kang Woojin, the world of reality fades away, replaced entirely by the dark world of BSS, where they must face the monster known as Iota Kiyoshi. The air at the filming location is thick with the low, steady hum of a busy production as the scene opens on a massive school building. On the wide green expanse of the soccer field, a sea of students stands in neat rows, but these are no ordinary pupils. They are actors clad in crisp uniforms, waiting for the day's work to begin. High above, the sound of chatter fills the sky, represented by large characters that signal the bustling energy of the crowd. A staff member in a long, dark coat asks if the school uniforms have been distributed to the actors yet, to which a younger man in a baseball cap and gray t-shirt confirms that everything has been handed out. The scale of the production is immediately apparent as the camera pans over the hundreds of extras preparing for the shoot. Near the sidelines, the focus shifts to the technical preparations. A crew member calls out for a camera test, counting 1, 2. Into the equipment to ensure everything is synchronized. Seated on a bench nearby is a man in a vibrant green tracksuit, watching the proceedings with a quiet intensity, while beside him, a young man with dark, messy hair and a focused expression flips through a thick stack of papers. This is Kang Woojin, and the script he holds is the blueprint for the first filming location of their current project. According to the notes, the schedule for this site has just concluded, transitioning into the introduction of a new character within the story they are telling. The narrative within their film introduces Detective Yashizawa Mashio, a character played by the actor Mana Kasaku. The script details that this detective arrives on the scene the day after the tragic deaths of characters named Ginzo and Shotoku. Per the story's setting, Mashio is a relentless hunter, a man who will stop at nothing to track down a stranger named Iota Kiyoshi until the bitter end. As Woojin absorbs these details, the scene shifts back to the reality of the set. The production team has moved to this specific school to film the essential flashback scenes that will serve as the foundation for the series titled BSS. Woojin stands among the crew, his gaze fixed on the pages in his hands, fully immersed in the world he is about to inhabit. The quiet moment of preparation is interrupted by a familiar voice calling out Woojin's name. A man in a sharp olive-green suit and glasses, the president of Woojin's agency, approaches with a sense of purpose. He hands over a new set of documents, announcing that the advertising contract with the Kasihi Group has finally been finalized. He presents both the formal contract and the storyboard for the very first advertisement Woojin will be filming. Woojin looks up, a slight look of surprise on his face as he mutters a soft "oh." Taking in the news, the president explains that there will actually be 2 commercials to shoot, one centered on construction and the other on food. To emphasize the point, colorful images of high-end steaks, lobsters, and gourmet dishes float in the background, contrasting with the industrial nature of the construction side of the deal. The president notes that filming for these commercials is set for next week, though he admits that the clients seem to be in a strange rush for some reason. Regardless, he concludes that it is better for them to get these obligations out of the way as early as possible. He points out that the timing is actually perfect, as the filming for another project, The Island of the Missing, has just wrapped up. However, their schedule remains packed, with a press conference and promotion cycles looming on the horizon, not to mention an upcoming audition for a project called Lee. Despite the mounting workload, the president's tone turns genuinely celebratory. He praises Woojin's performance from the previous day, stating it was absolutely great, and that even the film producers and distributors were completely losing their minds over the quality of his acting. Woojin remains humble, his thoughts appearing in a bubble above his head as he wonders if that was really the case. He admits to himself that he didn't even notice the reactions because he was so deeply immersed in the scene he was playing. As they continue to walk through the bustling set, the president starts to say something else, but he is interrupted by the sharp buzz of his phone. He looks down, his expression shifting to one of confusion as he wonders why the office is calling him at this hour. He steps aside to take the call, leaving Woo Jin alone for a moment. The president's attention is drawn to a group of people standing a short distance away. He notices several foreigners among the crowd, individuals he hasn't seen on set before. The atmosphere feels slightly different around them, marked by the same bustling chatter characters seen earlier. His eyes lock onto one person in particular, a woman with a sleek brown bob cut and glasses, dressed in a professional dark suit. He feels a nagging sense of recognition, wondering if he has seen her somewhere before or if it is just his imagination. He is positive he has seen her face, but in the heat of the busy set, he can't quite place where. The president is still on the phone, his tone casual as he asks, "Yeah, what is it?" But as the person on the other end speaks, his face pales and his eyes widen behind his glasses. A cold sweat begins to bead on his forehead. He lets out a strangled wah before finally shouting, "What?" in total disbelief. The sudden outburst draws attention, but the president is too focused on the shocking news to care. He quickly moves back toward Woo Jin, his movements frantic. The president holds out his smartphone, urging Woo Jin to take a look at a video immediately. The screen displays a viral post titled "Breaking News," claiming that the phenomenal actor Kang Woo Jin secretly took a Hollywood screen test. The video, posted by a channel called Fact Guys, already has over 400,000 views and hundreds of comments. The headline boldly states that he is just one step away from a Hollywood debut and claims to have conclusive proof. Woo Jin stares at the screen, his internal thoughts spiraling into a mess of question marks. He reads through the comments, seeing fans losing their minds over the possibility of a Korean actor reaching Hollywood only a year after his debut. One commenter notes that the evidence looks too solid to be a mere rumor, while another mentions that even for Hollywood, Winner Movie Pictures is a decent mid-sized studio. Woo Jin is paralyzed by a sense of dread and confusion. He wonders how this YouTuber could possibly know about the test, as he hadn't told us so. He suspects that perhaps the Hollywood production company leaked the information, despite their claims that the test was top secret. He looks at the president and asks if he was the one behind the leak, but the president denies it instantly. He assumes it wasn't Woo Jin either, which leaves them in a difficult position. The president points out that the details in the video are incredibly specific, suggesting that the source must be an insider with direct access to the information. The president tries to calm down, noting that while it is a headache, it isn't necessarily a terminal problem for Woo Jin's career. There is already a massive amount of hype surrounding him, and being associated with big shots in Hollywood only raises his profile. For now, he has instructed BW Entertainment to stay quiet on the matter. Woo Jin agrees that the president has a point. When there is no point in a direct response, silence is often the best answer. However, the president is still puzzled. He reasons that since they didn't leak it, it was likely the Hollywood company's doing, but he can't figure out what Winner Movie Pictures would actually gain from such a leak. He warns Woo Jin that regardless of the reason, the entertainment industry in Korea is about to be thrown into absolute chaos because of this news. Woo Jin tries to push the worry aside, telling himself he just needs to focus on his acting for now. But his eyes drift back to the mysterious lady in the crowd. Suddenly, the pieces click together. He realizes that the lady with the brown bob cut was present during the last Kill 3 screen test. She's a casting director from Winner Movie Pictures. The timing is far too perfect to be a coincidence. He stares at her, his yellow-tinted eyes narrowing as he processes the strangeness of her presence here, especially right when the video was leaked. Deciding that the best way to find out the truth is to ask directly, Woo Jin begins walking toward the group of foreigners. The president, startled by the sudden movement, calls out asking where he is going. Woo Jin ignores the question and walks straight up to the woman, offering a calm hello. She turns, a polite smile crossing her face as she recognizes him. "Mr. Kang Woo Jin," she says, her tone pleasant. She tells him it is a pleasure to meet him and admits that while she knew he would be there, she couldn't quite bring herself to greet him right away in front of everyone. She leans in slightly, whispering that it would probably be better if they kept their connection a secret for now, suggesting they speak privately later. Woo Jin doesn't back down. He points out that she was the one who came looking for him. She smiles and explains that she happens to have a bit of a connection with the director on this set. She claims she came to Japan for some work and decided to stop by, adding that, of course, she knew he would be there. Woo Jin doesn't buy the casual explanation. He pulls out his phone and shows her the leaked YouTube video, stating that the information about his screen test for Last Kill 3 just popped up on a Korean channel. He asks her directly if it is possible her side leaked the video, reminding her that he was told the entire process was confidential. The casting director's professional facade cracks. Her eyes go wide and her mouth hangs open in genuine shock. "What? There's no way," she stammers, her face turning pale. She insists that it definitely wasn't them. The people around them begin to whisper as they notice the tense interaction. Sensing the rising attention, she asks for a moment to collect herself. Woo-jin watches her walk away to handle the situation, while the president hurries to his side, asking what she said. Woo-jin simply tells him they can ignore it for now, as it seems his suspicions about her side leaking the info might have been wrong. The president, still wary, decides to go and have a word with her himself just in case. Left to his own thoughts, Woo-jin feels a familiar exhaustion creeping in. He knows the media is going to make a huge fuss about the Hollywood rumors for a long time, and his head is already starting to hurt just thinking about it. He decides he needs a break and prepares to head to the subspace, the mental void where he refines his craft. He closes his eyes and enters the dark, silent realm. Inside the subspace, Woo-jin stands alone in the darkness. He notes that, fortunately, there hasn't been any change in his grade. He looks around at the floating frames that represent the roles he has collected: detective agency, the bizarre sacrifice of a stranger, and leech. As he stares at these fragments of other lives, a sudden curiosity strikes him. He wonders if it is possible to mix the roles he has already imprinted. He isn't thinking about the worlds the roles belong to, but rather a pure merging of the roles themselves. He laughs to himself, wondering if doing such a thing would just make him look like a complete lunatic. Suddenly, a system notification flashes before him, accompanied by a sharp sound. The message reads, "Acquired understanding of role synthesis." Woo-jin is stunned, his mouth falling open as he stares at the glowing text. He questions what he just acquired, repeating the words "role synthesis understanding" in disbelief. He waits for a follow-up or a detailed explanation, but there is no further response from the system. He wonders if it's some kind of joke, or if the lack of an answer means the process has already initiated some kind of action. He reasons that the subspace would never do something meaningless, yet he doesn't see any major physical changes in his surroundings. Then he realizes the change is internal. He muses that perhaps his inner world has fundamentally shifted. Up until now, the worlds of his various projects were imprinted within him, piled up densely like a series of closed rooms. He visualizes it as a single orange door. Whenever he accessed a project, it always began by opening that door. From there, a different reality would unfold through the eyes of the role he chose to read. It was a fixed framework, and because of that, his freedom in acting was always limited to the confines of that specific project. It was impossible to summon just the role without bringing the entire world of the project along with it. However, as he looks around the subspace now, the scenery has changed. Instead of one door, multiple doors are now floating in the dark void, each containing a silhouette of a different character he has played. There is a man in a suit, another in tactical gear, and one in a casual hoodie. It feels as if the roles he has imprinted are no longer locked away in a basement, but are standing in a row of small rooms, waiting for their master's command. He realizes with a start that this must be the meaning of role synthesis. Regardless of the project's world, he can now freely pull out and use the roles themselves as independent entities. He stands before a dark door, looking at the glowing figure of a detective inside, realizing that the boundaries of his acting have just been shattered. Kang Woo-jin stands at the threshold of a revolutionary discovery within his own mind, questioning the true limits of the unique ability he calls role synthesis. He wonders if he is now capable of pulling any character he has previously mastered and utilizing them freely, regardless of the world or story he currently inhabits. To test this theory, Woo-jin enters his mental void, a dark expanse filled with vibrant, glowing doors of various colors. He focuses his intent, deciding to pull up the character of Kiyoshi Iyoda from his current project, referred to as BSS. A door glows green, and the character steps forth, appearing as a mirror image of Woo-jin but carrying a distinct, hollowed-out presence. Not satisfied with just one, Woo-jin moves to his next target, a character named Kim Ryujin from a previous work titled Detective Agency. An orange-red door opens, and the trench coat-wearing detective emerges. In this mental space, Woo-jin attempts something he has never tried before, layering the two roles. He commands Kim Ryujin to layer over the Kiyoshi who is already rooted within his psyche. As the two identities merge, the visual representation of the characters overlaps, creating a complex, multifaceted entity that sits right beneath Woo Jin's skin. The physical and mental toll of this synthesis is immediate and jarring. Woo Jin hunches over, clutching his face as a wave of nausea washes over him. He reflects on the fact that because this is his first time performing such a complex merge, the sensation is incredibly weird and unsettling. Despite the physical discomfort, the world around him remains the one belonging to Kiyoshi. He still feels Kiyoshi's thoughts and his heart, but something has fundamentally shifted. A sudden, sharp craving for a cigarette hits him, a trait belonging to the detective, Kim Ryujin. He realizes that while the base is still Kiyoshi, his internal drive and mannerisms are being influenced by the detective's curiosity and dry nature. He notes that everything suddenly feels both tiresome and intriguing. This hybrid is no longer the original Kiyoshi Iota. Instead, a mysterious and entirely different being has been born from the fusion. This new entity is deeply curious, yet maintains a sense of being somewhat clumsy. To further test the mechanics of this power, Woo Jin tries to reverse the process. He focuses on removing Kim Ryujin from within himself, and as the detective's influence fades, he feels himself return to the base state. Only the original Kiyoshi is left behind. A small smile plays on Woo Jin's lips as he realizes how useful this could be for making characters truly stand out by subtly altering their core traits. Returning to reality, Woo Jin sits on a film set, looking down at the pages of his script. He decides to give his current role a shot by keeping Kiyoshi Iota as the foundation but amplifying certain traits to make the character appear even more bizarre than originally written. As he prepares for the day's filming, the scene shifts to the broader production environment. The atmosphere on the set is tense. Staff members are whispering among themselves, gossiping about a rumor that Kang Woo Jin's side was responsible for leaking a high-profile video. Among the crowd are several foreign observers who have traveled specifically to see Woo Jin in action. This group includes a tall, blonde man, a red-haired man in a brown suit, and a professional-looking woman with glasses. They are from the production of the Hollywood project Last Kill 3, and they are here to evaluate the actor who famously turned them down. The woman asks what scene is being filmed today, and the man explains that they are capturing a past sequence where the protagonist, Kiyoshi, is being bullied. She notes that in the original novel, Kiyoshi is a character whose heart has essentially died, leaving him passive and inactive. The observers express a bit of disappointment, worried that they have arrived at a bad time. They fear that a bullying scene will result in a relaxed or dull performance that won't showcase Woo Jin's true range. On the set, the director calls for standby. The tension in the room spikes as the actors take their positions. The sequence begins with the bullies surrounding Kiyoshi, who is sitting on the floor. One of the bullies, a man with light brown hair, crouches down and mockingly asks if Kiyoshi brought his allowance today. Woo Jin, fully immersed in his modified Kiyoshi, responds with a quiet, hollow affirmation. He reaches into his pocket and hands over a stack of bills. The bullies laugh, with a blonde girl in a school uniform commenting on how creepy he is. She says his face looks gross every time they see him, comparing him to a boring robot. The male bully continues to poke at Kiyoshi, demanding a reaction and telling him to stop staring like that. According to the original script, Kiyoshi's only line here was supposed to be a simple, defeated request for them to stop it. However, Woo Jin decides that this is the perfect moment for another role synthesis. He reaches into his mental library and selects Corporal Jin Suncheol from his work The Island of the Missing. He describes Jin Suncheol as a character where two faces coexist, a timid coward and a violent brute. Even the timid side of the corporal was cunning from the start and grew more cruel over time. Woo Jin synthesizes this complex, dark persona with the hollow shell of Kiyoshi. He wonders what the staff, the director, and the public will think of the result. The performance begins to shift in a way that no one expected. Woo Jin starts to stutter, his voice trembling as he says, "Sin, stop it. Don't. I'm scared." He cowers, telling them not to hit him because he already gave them the money. The bullies on set are caught off guard. The tone of his voice is definitely that of the original Kiyoshi, but the expression on his face and the overall atmosphere radiating from him have completely changed. It is truly strange and bizarre. It feels as if a different person is flickering in and out of his eyes for seconds at a time. The actor playing the bully tries to maintain his composure and continue his dialogue. He stammers slightly, commenting that Kiyoshi is actually good at following directions and mocks him for keeping his mouth shut all this time. He leans in closer, grabbing Kiyoshi by the collar and demanding that he get angry and pissed off. He shouts at Kiyoshi to hurry up and get mad at them. Suddenly, the atmosphere turns cold. Woojin's eyes, which were once hollow, sharpen with a terrifying intensity. He looks directly at the bully and calls him a piece of trash. In a voice that drips with a different kind of malice, he asks, "Who the hell are you to give me orders?" The shift is so violent and sudden that the entire set goes silent. Woojin continues, his voice low and dangerous, asking the bully if he wants to be covered in cement and dropped into the ocean. He stares deep into the other actor's soul, asking if he wants to die. The reflection in Kiyoshi's eyes shows a dark, demonic figure, symbolizing the violent brute of the corporal surfacing through the timid student. The staff members are frozen in shock. They whisper to each other, asking if something like this can even be called acting. They can sense the presence of other characters bleeding out from Kiyoshi, creating a performance that is far more complex than the script required. An assistant director turns to the main director, asking if they should stop the scene because the actors are going significantly off script. The director, however, is mesmerized. He tells them no, to just keep going. He realizes that the Kiyoshi being portrayed by Woojin has clearly devoured the script entirely. To the director's eyes, the character has become several times more withered and shriveled, yet he remains undeniably Kiyoshi Iota. He understands that Woojin is giving the performance of a lifetime for what was meant to be a short, minor scene. As a director, he feels it is impossible to cut this, and he immediately begins thinking about how he will have to change the rest of the script to match this incredible level of acting. The foreign observers are equally stunned. The red-haired man notes that with this kind of acting tension and martial arts skill, Woojin would have been a massive hit in Hollywood. The woman with glasses realizes that Woojin's refusal of the Hollywood project wasn't because he lacked skill. She believes he was making a declaration, showing off his presence and proving he can play supporting or minor roles whenever he wants with absolute mastery. She muses that he isn't even trying to challenge Hollywood. He is simply confident that Hollywood will eventually come looking for him. She thinks about how he is currently preparing for the King Film Festival with director on Gabok, and predicts that once he flips that festival upside down, his career will escalate far beyond being a mere supporting actor. She suspects that Joseph Felton, a high-level figure in their industry, saw through Woojin's potential early on and was the one who leaked the screen test info for Last Kill 3. She believes Joseph recognized significant value in the actor, even writing a bit of a script for him that ultimately went unused. In her eyes, Kang Woojin doesn't need anyone's help. He is carving out his own path at an incredible speed. She recalls asking him about the screen test video and remembers the look of genuine annoyance on his face, suggesting he truly didn't care for the meddling. In a final lighthearted moment, the scene shifts away from the heavy atmosphere of the set. The woman wonders what kind of face Joseph would make if she told him about Woojin's reaction. Meanwhile, Woojin is seen elsewhere, away from the intense acting, suddenly letting out a sneeze. He rubs his nose with a puzzled expression, wondering if someone is talking about him behind his back, unaware of the profound impact his new role synthesis has just made on everyone watching him. The atmosphere on the streets is buzzing with a frantic energy as crowds of people move past colorful storefronts and tangled power lines. Yet all the noise of the city seems distant compared to the rumors currently swirling around a certain rising star. Two men standing amidst the bustle check their phones, one asking the other if he has seen today's article regarding the news that Kang Woojin is heading to Hollywood. His companion looks skeptical, checking his own device and noting that the article he saw claimed the actor only went there for a screen test, not a guaranteed role. Their conversation drifts back to the filming set from a few days prior, recalling a group of foreigners they had spotted. While some initially thought these individuals were part of a specialized Hollywood production crew, others had dismissed them as merely being part of the special effects team. Now that those foreigners are nowhere to be seen, the staff begins to wonder if they have already left the country, and if Woojin will truly be heading straight for the United States once his current project wraps up. In the midst of these whispers, Kang Woojin stands quietly on the set, his dark hair falling over a sharp, focused gaze. He is well aware that the news of his potential international debut has even reached the shores of Japan, but he finds a strange sense of relief in the fact that no one is bold enough to ask him about it directly. This silence is largely due to an explicit order from director who has strictly forbidden anyone from disturbing the atmosphere on set with outside gossip. Woojin's internal thoughts are far less composed than his outward appearance suggests, as he reflects on the numerous articles popping up in Korea claiming that his greed will lead to his eventual ruin. His phone buzzes relentlessly in his pocket, a constant reminder of the chaos unfolding outside this quiet filming bubble. Beads of sweat begin to form as he feels the pressure mounting, but he lets out a heavy sigh and forces himself to shove those distractions aside, deciding that his only priority right now is to focus entirely on the filming process. The production transitions into its next major phase, moving the story back to the present day within the narrative of the series known as BSS. The setting shifts to a dimly lit karaoke bar owned by a woman named Horanouchi Amy. This particular scene takes place chronologically before the death of a character named Ginza. Woojin's character, Kiyoshi, steps into the bar as part of his preparation for his next assignment, which the script ominously refers to as his homework, the bizarre sacrifice of Amy herself. According to the scenario, Kiyoshi needs to project a much higher level of tension than his usual calm and collected demeanor would suggest. Woojin looks over the script with a critical eye, feeling that the current direction feels a bit too flat for such a pivotal moment. To elevate the scene, he decides to synthesize the cold, calculated persona of a character he previously played, Kim Ryujin, into the role of Kiyoshi. As he makes this mental shift, his eyes undergo a terrifying transformation, turning a sharp, predatory yellow that seems to pierce through the dim light of the bar. The crew begins to move with renewed urgency as the call for standby echoes through the room. Actors and staff take their positions behind the long, dark counter of the bar as the director gives the final command. And action. The scene begins with the bartender, a young man with long blonde hair tied back, cleaning a glass. He greets the newcomer with a polite smile, asking what he would like to order. Kiyoshi, dressed in a sharp black suit with a strap across his chest, sits heavily at the counter and simply states that he will start with a beer. The bartender acknowledges the order with a quick nod, but as he turns to fulfill it, Kiyoshi's voice cuts through the air again. He remarks that the bartender looks incredibly familiar and asks if they have met before. This simple question causes the bartender to pause, his expression shifting to one of confusion and slight unease. Kiyoshi leans in closer, his intense gaze never leaving the man's face, and asks the bartender to come a little closer as well. The blonde man is visibly unnerved, thinking to himself that there is something deeply wrong with the way the stranger is looking at him. He has never witnessed this kind of raw, chilling acting before. Kiyoshi's voice remains low and steady as he drops a bombshell, asking if the man is actually Horanouchi Amy's lover. The bartender is stunned into silence, but the pressure only intensifies as Kiyoshi leans in further, his mouth curving into a slight, mocking smirk. He asks if the man's name is Horio Aishi, a revelation that causes the bartender's eyes to widen in genuine shock. Aishi stammers, wondering how this stranger could possibly know a secret that was supposed to be hidden from everyone. Suddenly, the director's voice booms through the set with a loud cut. The director critiques the performance, stating that Horio Aishi's emotional response was far too weak, and demanding that the actor try to express his shock more intensely. The blonde actor, who is actually a rookie named Aishi in real life as well, immediately breaks character and bows deeply, apologizing profusely to Woojin for the mistake. Woojin, now back to his normal self, tells him that it is fine, remembering his own days as a rookie and the struggles that come with it. He wants to say something to encourage the younger actor, but finds himself hesitating over what would actually be helpful. He wonders if suggesting the use of more physical body movement during the performance would help ground Aishi's reactions. As Woojin tries to demonstrate what he means by physical acting, he reaches out his hand, but in his momentary focus on the advice, he accidentally clips the glass of beer sitting on the counter. The glass tips over with a splash, spilling beer and ice cubes everywhere. Woojin is internally mortified, thinking to himself that he has really messed up again. He quickly starts trying to clean up the mess, sweating as he wonders why there had to be a glass of beer sitting right there of all places. However, Aishi stands there in a daze, watching Woojin's movements with wide eyes. He misinterprets the entire accident, believing that Woojin purposely knocked the glass over to demonstrate the kind of sudden, jarring movement the scene needed. Aishi is deeply moved, thinking that Woojin is a genius who just gave him a masterful lesson in blocking without even trying to show off. The director and the rest of the staff share this sentiment, watching from the monitors as they whisper about how Woojin seems to be mentoring the minor actor with such grace. They admire the fact that his suggested blocking matches the director's vision perfectly, even though Woojin is currently just embarrassed and trying to pull himself together. The smell of beer is spreading across the set, and while Woojin is busy worrying about his clumsy mistake, the director calls for the scene to resume. The command for action is given once more, and they reset to the moment Kiyoshi confronts Aishi at the bar. This time, the interaction flows with a much sharper edge. Kiyoshi repeats his inquiry about the man being Amy's lover. This time, following the advice he thinks he received, Aishi reacts with a start, knocking his own hand against the counter just as Woojin had done earlier. The glass of beer spills once again, but this time it is a deliberate part of the performance. Kiyoshi stares at the spilled liquid with a cold, detached expression, noting that the bartender looks quite surprised. He then leans over the counter, his face inches from Aishi's, and tells him to come closer or he will scream. He leans in even further, whispering something directly into the man's ear as the tension in the room reaches a breaking point. The director is thrilled with the take and shouts, "Cut," before announcing that it is time to move on to the next scene. The production then shifts its focus to a new character, Mana Kasaku, who plays the role of Detective Yashizawa Mashio. The scenario describes a moment where Detective Mashio, having learned that Ginzo called Amy right before his death, goes to the bar to see her. This is the first time Mashio and Kiyoshi cross paths. As Mashio walks into the bar, Kiyoshi is walking out. They brush past each other in a narrow corridor, and although Kiyoshi's face is completely expressionless, the detective is left feeling deeply unsettled. Mashio pauses, looking back at the retreating figure of the young man, realizing that the depth of the acting he just witnessed is staggering. He realizes that Woojin is a true acting monster, and that if he doesn't stay on guard every second they are on screen together, he will inevitably be overshadowed and compared unfavorably to him for the rest of the project. The narrative transitions into an interrogation scene where Detective Mashio questions Amy about her relationship with Ginzo. Amy sits on a plush green sofa, her hands trembling as she remains shaken from her last phone call with the deceased man. Mashio slides a photograph across the table, asking if she knows a man named Misaki Shudoku, identifying him as the person who murdered Mr. Ginzo. At the mention of that name, Amy's eyes waver visibly. She tries to maintain her composure, crossing her arms and claiming that she has never seen the man before. However, the detective notices the subtle shift in her demeanor. He continues, noting that Misaki Shudoku shares the same surname as someone named Misaki Toka. The scene then provides critical context for Amy's distress. She remembers Ginzo's final words on the phone, where he told her that Misaki Toka had returned. This revelation has sent her into a spiral of delusion and fear. Mashio pushes further, suggesting that while Shudoku is the primary culprit, there might have been an accomplice involved in the crime. The moment the word accomplice is uttered, Amy's eyes waver for a second time, a detail that Mashio catches instantly. Amy is internally panicking, wondering if Toka could truly be alive, even though she is certain she saw the girl die with her own eyes. She reasons that Toka's father wouldn't have killed Ginzo out of nowhere unless it was revenge for what Ginzo had done to his daughter. Amy's guilt weighs heavily on her as she remembers how she once encouraged Ginzo to torment Toka even more. She is terrified that Toka somehow knows of her involvement, and a ghostly, green-tinted vision of a smiling Toka seems to loom over her in the darkness of the bar. Driven by fear and a crumbling psyche, Amy suddenly stands up and tells the detectives that she has said enough and needs to rest. She gestures wildly for them to leave. Mashio is surprised by her sudden outburst, stating that he still has more questions, but Amy screams at them to get out. As the detectives retreat, Mashio thinks to himself that something was definitely off about her behavior. Left alone in her mental exhaustion, Amy eventually makes a phone call to her lover, Horio Aishi. Leaning on his warm words and presence, she breaks down into heavy sobs and pours out her true feelings. She confesses that she never liked Misaki Toka from the moment the girl transferred, and her thoughts drift back to an incident on a rooftop. The narration notes that this choice to confess everything over the phone will become a fatal mistake for her. The chapter concludes in a dark, secluded alleyway where Horio Aishi is walking alone, looking over his shoulder with a paranoid expression. He clutches a small, black object in his hand, his breathing heavy as he moves through the shadows. A voice suddenly calls out from the darkness, telling him that he has finally come. Aishi jumps in fright, turning to see the silhouette of Kiyoshi standing before him. Kiyoshi steps forward, his yellow eyes glowing slightly in the dark as he reaches out a hand and tells Aishi to give it to him. With trembling hands, Aishi hands over the small black device, which is revealed to be a recorder containing Amy's tearful confession. The weight of the ordeal this recorder will bring to Amy is immense, but in this moment, no one in the world knows the truth of what has transpired except for Kiyoshi himself. With a slow, deliberate movement, he reaches out to hand over a small, black rectangular recording device. As the object passes between them, the sound of the exchange is the only thing breaking the silence. Kiyoshi takes the device and begins to examine it with a cold, clinical detachedness. As he looks over the evidence, his internal thoughts reveal a deep-seated animosity for his former classmate, Amy. He hears the recording how she has disliked her ever since she first transferred to their school, coldly noting to herself that she should have personally confirmed whether she truly died after jumping from the rooftop. Satisfied with the leverage he now holds, he offers a quiet commendation of "good job" to the trembling man before him. Greed quickly replaces Aishi's fear as he looks at Kiyoshi with wide, hopeful eyes, asking if he will truly receive the money as they had discussed. Kiyoshi does not immediately answer. Instead, he tells Aishi to be quiet and begins to rummage through his black suit jacket. He produces a thick, intimidating stack of 10,000 yen notes, held together by a simple paper band. However, as he holds the currency out, he informs a stunned Aishi that he will only be providing 10% of the total amount first. The rest, he explains, will be paid out in monthly installments. Aishi is paralyzed by this sudden change in terms, protesting that this was not what they had originally promised. Kiyoshi remains entirely unmoved by the outburst, presenting a cold ultimatum. If Aishi is unhappy with the arrangement, Kiyoshi will simply return the recording and they can pretend no deal ever existed. Caught in a trap of his own making, Aishi desperately reaches out to grab the offered cash, pleading for Kiyoshi to give it to him. As the money changes hands, Kiyoshi delivers his final order, telling Aishi that he must now disappear for at least half a year. As Aishi stands there in a daze, the narrative provides a grim insight into his character. Despite his attractive appearance, Horio Aishi is a man of nasty habits who frequented gambling houses and game rooms behind his partner Amy's back. He has accumulated a massive, crushing debt to the Kabukicho Yakuza, making it effortless for Kiyoshi to seize upon his weakness. By putting Aishi on a leash with this money, Kiyoshi ensures total control. He knows he must not fully quench the man's thirst for funds, keeping him just desperate enough to be compliant. At this moment, Aishi is at constant risk of being eliminated by the Yakuza without a trace, making Kiyoshi his only hope for survival. Kiyoshi hands over a small slip of paper and a key, explaining that he has prepared a house for Aishi in a remote fishing village in Chiba. He mentions that a rough map of the location is included on the paper. When Aishi tries to ask how they will stay in contact, Kiyoshi sharply interrupts, making it clear that he will be the one initiating any future communication. Finding Aishi's lingering presence irritating, Kiyoshi asks what he is still doing there and repeats his command to disappear. Aishi finally breaks into a run, his footsteps echoing as he flees the scene. Watching him go, Kiyoshi muses that things will be fine for at least a few months. He realizes that while Aishi might start flailing around in his new isolation, it ultimately does not matter. The man is destined to be handed over to the Yakuza in the end. The focus then shifts to the recording device itself. Kiyoshi clarifies that this evidence is not intended for Amy, but is actually the key to controlling his next assignment, Suzuki Itsuma. Itsuma is described as the brain of their social group back in high school and is currently a powerful figure with strong financial backing, being the heir to a family that owns a mid-sized company. Kiyoshi wonders with dark curiosity what kind of face the prestigious heir would make if this recording were sent to him. The scene then transitions to show Itsuma himself, looking stressed and disheveled as he clutches a phone to his ear, desperately waiting for someone to pick up. He is calling Amy, but the woman on the other end is in no state to answer. Amy is shown collapsed on the floor of a darkened room, her mind having begun to collapse endlessly after the sudden disappearance of her only pillar of support, Aishi. She is plagued by vivid hallucinations, seeing the ghostly, blurred figure of Toka standing before her. She screams at the apparition to get lost and stop staring at her, her voice filled with a mix of terror and madness. This psychological breakdown was no accident. It was entirely orchestrated by Iota Kiyoshi. By relentlessly sending her graduation photos, images of Ginzo's death, and anonymous text messages, He systematically shook her sanity until her vision and auditory hallucinations became unbearable. Later, Itsuma is seen driving Amy in a car, trying to manage her hysteria. She is a shell of her former self, begging Itsuma to save her and claiming that Toka visits her every single day. In her desperation, she declares her intention to go to the police and confess everything, believing that Toka might show her mercy if she tells the truth. Itsuma tries to bring her back to reality, reminding her that Toka is dead, but Amy snaps back that she saw her only yesterday. She warns Itsuma that detectives have already been looking for her and tells him that he should flee as well because Toka will surely come for him next. Watching her spiral, Itsuma realizes that trying to talk to her is useless as she has completely lost her mind. As he grips the steering wheel, his expression turns cold and sharp. Now that he has finally ascended to the position of company heir, he decides he cannot allow her to ruin his future. He concludes that he simply does not have the time for such unnecessary headaches. The scene is actually a film set located on a rooftop, where a production crew is gathered around monitors and cameras. The director, a man with long dark hair, explains that today is the filming day for a pivotal scene in the project BSS, where the character Itsuma murders Amy on the rooftop to bury his past. Kang Woojin, the actor who plays the lead role of Kiyoshi, stands nearby to observe the filming. His presence creates an intense atmosphere for the Japanese actors on set, who feel as though they are facing two battles simultaneously, one against the character Kiyoshi within the story, and another against the overwhelming acting talent of Kang Woojin himself. The actor playing Itsuma feels the pressure mounting, regretting that he didn't practice his lines even more before arriving. He thinks about how the characters in BSS are subjected to a bizarre sacrifice at Kiyoshi's hands, and how as an actor he feels completely eclipsed by Woojin's performance. However, he refuses to give up, realizing that his career will be buried if he allows himself to be pushed back here. He resolves to hold his ground and fight against the monster talent in front of him until the very end. The director calls for action and the rooftop scene begins. Itsuma grabs Amy by the throat as she screams in terror. She gasps out that Toka is right there, but Itsuma coldly informs her that Toka does not exist. He tells her it is okay and that he will put her at peace now, pushing her toward the edge. He questions the logic of her wanting to confess to the police, telling her she brought this fate upon herself. The director eventually calls for a cut, ending the intense sequence. He informs Woojin that they will be moving to the parking lot, next to film the scene where Kiyoshi secretly records every detail of the murder. As they prepare to move, Woojin reflects on his hectic schedule, which involves a few more days of shooting for BSS and various advertisements before he must return to Korea. The director then approaches Woojin with an unexpected question, asking if he knows how to play the piano. Woojin recalls that he has the skills imprinted from his guy friend persona, which allows him to play most instruments with ease. He modestly tells the director that he knows a little bit. The director explains that in the original novel, there is a scene where Toka, who is a skilled pianist, teaches Kiyoshi how to play. He suggests that if Woojin's character were to replay that performance later in the story, it would be a powerful way to express a dry, haunting sense of longing for the deceased Toka. Woojin agrees to the idea, and the director thanks him, planning to update him once the scene is fully mapped out. Privately, the director assumes that since Woojin only claimed to know a little, he likely only understands the basics of the instrument. He laughs to himself, thinking there is no way Woojin could be amazing at the piano on top of everything else. However, the chapter concludes with a preview of the next sequence, showing the director wearing a look of total, slack-jawed shock. Woojin is shown sitting at the piano, his head bowed in concentration as beautiful musical notes fill the air, leaving the entire crew wondering what is truly going on with the depth of his hidden talents.
As many of you know, my previous channel was taken down. I've started a new channel, so I kindly request you all to subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. Thank you for supporting me.
The setting sun casts a warm, orange glow over the towering skyline of the city, where a modern, high-rise building stands prominently against the clouds. Inside the opulent hallways of this structure, Kang Woojin walks alongside his manager, his footsteps echoing softly against the ornate, floral-patterned carpet. Woojin lets out a weary sigh, complaining that his entire body feels incredibly stiff after a grueling schedule. He reflects on the day, thinking to himself that he spent the whole time caught up in magazine shoots, and he is struck by how quickly time seems to have flown by. His manager, a man with long dark hair tied back and wearing sharp glasses, looks over at him with concern, asking if he is holding up okay after such a long day. Woo-jin offers a simple, tired smile, assuring him that he is fine. The conversation turns toward their upcoming schedule, as the manager notes that Woo-jin is truly incredible for maintaining his pace. He mentions that the shoot for the production titled BSS is set to begin the very next day. They are currently staying at the Kasihi Tokyo Hotel, a location secured specifically for the hotel-based scenes of the project. This was made possible thanks to Chairman Heidke, whose influence made securing such a prestigious venue a simple task. The manager explains that the director and all the other actors have already gathered in the hotel restaurant for dinner. He suggests that Woo-jin should head over there immediately to join them. Woo-jin nods in agreement, but his manager tells him that he will be heading to his own room first to get some rest, instructing Woo-jin to call him if anything urgent comes up. As they stand by the elevators, preparing to part ways, the manager wishes him a good rest. Suddenly, the quiet atmosphere is broken by a voice calling out from behind them. A young girl with bright pink hair and glasses, seated in a blue checkered wheelchair, exclaims in excitement. She is accompanied by a woman with long, elegant brown hair who is pushing the chair. The woman quickly apologizes for the intrusion, explaining that the young girl, whose name is Asami Yusako, is a massive fan of Kang Woo-jin. The woman notes that Yusako is beyond thrilled to have run into him by pure chance like this. Woo-jin looks at the young girl and is momentarily struck by a sense of familiarity, thinking that she reminds him of Kang Hyuna because she also wore glasses when she was a child. He makes a mental note to give Hyuna a call once he has finished his dinner. Woo-jin turns to the young fan with a gentle expression, introducing himself formally as Kang Woo-jin. Yusako is overwhelmed, shaking his hand with both of hers and telling him that meeting him feels like a dream. She confesses that she watches his social media and YouTube videos every single day. Her excitement only grows as she lists off his previous works, mentioning that she has watched Hanryong and A Guy Friend many times, and she plans to watch his new project, BSS, at least 5 times when it is released. The girl's mother smiles warmly, explaining that today is actually Yusako's birthday and they are out for a family dinner. She thanks Woo-jin sincerely, stating that meeting him is an incredible gift for her daughter. Woo-jin, moved by the girl's sincerity, asks her what she wants to be when she grows up. Yusako's face lights up even more as she declares that she wants to be a voice actress, just like her mother. Intrigued, Woo-jin asks if there is a particular movie she likes. Without hesitation, Yusako shouts that her favorite is Howl's Moving Castle. At the mention of the film, something strange happens to Woo-jin. His eyes sharpen, and he begins to perceive a world-famous animation created by a Japanese legend. In his mind, the main theme, Merry-Go-Round of Life, begins to resonate. He realizes that although he is positive he has never actually seen the sheet music for this song before, the entire musical score is appearing vividly in his mind. It is an overwhelming sensation, as if he has played the piece on a piano thousands of times already. He realizes this sudden influx of talent and memory must be a result of his subspace ability. Shifting back to the present, he hands a signed paper to Yusako, telling her that he will be rooting for her and thanking her for being such a dedicated fan. As he prepares to leave, he tells them he must be on his way. Yusako clutches the autograph to her chest, her eyes wide with wonder, while her mother watches Woo-jin walk away. Woo-jin's manager catches up to him, remarking that the young girl will likely remember this birthday for the rest of her life. He muses that there aren't many jobs where someone can provide a lifelong memory just by exchanging a few words. Woo-jin nods, feeling a deep sense of job satisfaction and pride. However, a new problem begins to itch at the back of his mind. His hands are practically trembling with the urge to play music. As he enters the grand dining hall of the hotel, he is led through a room filled with elegantly dressed guests seated at round tables under brilliant chandeliers. His manager has already headed off to rest, so Woo-jin is escorted by a hotel staff member. As he walks, he spots Yusako and her family at a table nearby, realizing she is indeed having her birthday party in the same restaurant. His eyes then land on a magnificent white grand piano, positioned in the center of the room, gleaming under the lights. The urge to play becomes nearly unbearable. He thinks to himself that his fingers are itching to touch the keys and that the situation is perfect, but he wonders if he is actually allowed to play that specific piano. He turns to the staff member and asks if the piano is merely for decoration. The staff member informs him that a professional pianist is scheduled to perform later, but for the moment, the instrument is free. Just then, a man at a large table waves him over. It is the director, who calls out to Woo Jin, inviting him to sit next to him. Woo Jin approaches the table where several other members of the production are already seated. The director welcomes him and mentions that the standby for tomorrow's first shoot is at 7 in the morning. He admits it will be a tough start, but expresses how much he is looking forward to working with Woo Jin. Woo Jin politely acknowledges the director's words, and another person at the table asks if his magazine shoot went well, to which he simply replies, yes. Despite the conversation, Woo Jin's gaze keeps drifting back to the white piano. He knows that if he plays it, things might get complicated again with more misunderstandings regarding his seemingly endless list of talents. He has already been labeled a monster genius for his acting, and he knows adding professional-level piano skills to the mix will only fuel that fire. He pauses, staring at his reflection in a glass, before deciding that it doesn't matter. He is already buried in misunderstandings anyway, so he might as well follow his impulse. He tells himself he wants to support Yusako's dream and give her a proper birthday present at the same time. He decides that the perfect song for the occasion is the one she mentioned liking earlier, the famous OST, Merry-Go-Round of Life. Remembering that the director had once asked him if he could play the piano, Woo Jin stands up abruptly from the table. When the director asks where he is going, Woo Jin simply says he will be back in a minute. He walks across the marble floor toward the piano and approaches a staff member, asking if it would be all right if he played a song himself. The staff member is surprised, recognizing him as the famous actor Kang Woo Jin, and asks if he actually knows how to play. Woo Jin, with a nonchalant expression, replies that he isn't sure, but maybe he can. This leaves the staff member confused, but Woo Jin takes his seat on the red cushioned bench regardless. He stretches his fingers and places them over the keys. As he strikes the first notes, the entire room falls into a sudden, expectant silence. At a nearby table, two women stop their conversation, wondering what song is being played. They quickly recognize the melody from Howl's Moving Castle and are amazed by how good the performer is. One of them gasps as she realizes the man at the piano is Kang Woo Jin. The murmurs spread through the restaurant as guests realize the famous Korean actor is the one performing. The director sits at his table, frozen, his eyes wide with shock. He wonders if Woo Jin was a professional pianist in the past, noting that with a skill level like this, he could easily enter international competitions. The director reflects on Woo Jin's career, thinking about his monstrous acting, his mastery of various languages, and even his top-tier singing. He is baffled, wondering what on earth is going on with these piano skills. He had honestly thought Woo Jin only knew the basics, but what he is witnessing shouldn't even be realistically possible. Yet the impossibility is taking shape right in front of his eyes. The piano melody is stirring up complex emotions in everyone present. Even though it is a familiar song, Woo Jin's performance touches everyone differently, moving their hearts in a way they didn't expect. The director watches with a look of profound respect, thinking that what truly matters is the simple fact that someone like Mr. Woo Jin actually exists. As the final notes of the piece ring out, Woo Jin pulls his hands back from the keys. The room is silent for a heartbeat before erupting into thunderous applause. People stand up from their tables, cheering and thanking him for the incredible performance, with some shouting that it was the best they had ever experienced. Woo Jin, feeling slightly awkward by the overwhelming reaction, stands up and gives a polite bow, wondering if he should just stay there or head back to his seat. He turns his head and catches sight of Yusako in her wheelchair. He catches her eye and offers a small, warm smile, saying, "Happy birthday." He adds that he will be rooting for her dream. Yusako is moved to tears, turning to her mother and crying out that she told Mr. Woo Jin how much she loved that movie and that's why he played the song just for her. She sobs, saying she doesn't think she will ever forget what happened today. Her mother, Asami Seiya, wipes tears from her own eyes, stunned by the gesture. She can't believe an actor would play the piano for a fan's birthday after barely exchanging a few words. She thinks to herself that setting aside his acting, his character is simply incredible. Filled with gratitude, she reaches for her phone, feeling that something like this needs to be shared with everyone. The chapter ends on a revelation that Woo Jin was unaware of. The woman he just impressed is none other than Japan's top-tier voice actress, Asami Seiya, and his spontaneous act of kindness is about to create a massive impact on his future. On a brightly lit movie set, the director calls for action. Kang Woo-jin sits quietly at a grand piano in the center of the room. A staff member remarks that they are filming a scene that wasn't in the original schedule for the day, but the director is absolutely thrilled, noting that this is exactly the atmosphere he wanted. He explains to an associate that in the original novel, there was a piano scene, but it was excluded during the adaptation process. However, after witnessing Woo-jin's soul-capturing piano performance just 2 days ago, he couldn't possibly let the opportunity pass by. He hurriedly redesigned the directing and concept, leading them to film it today. Woo-jin places his hands on the keys, thinking to himself that it has been a long time since he played. As the first notes echo through the room, the onlooking staff, including a blonde woman and a dark-haired man, are visibly stunned. They recognize it as clearly the same song Woo-jin played at the restaurant 2 days ago, but the feeling is completely different. The dark-haired man observes that he can't feel any emotion in the piano playing or the music itself. He describes it as stiff and dull, wondering if it feels that way because the performer's face is entirely expressionless. Rubbing his arms, he questions if Woo-jin is acting even while playing the piano, admitting that the stark difference is giving him goosebumps. Watching the monitor, the director breaks down the psychological depth of the scene. He explains that the character, Kiyoshi, has no will to convey anything to the other person. That is why it is not a performance directed at someone, but closer to a monologue whispered to oneself. However, the dynamic shifts when a green-haired girl sits beside Woo-jin on the piano bench. The director notes that if, by chance, the person the character wants to reach is right before his eyes, everything changes. A faint trace of emotion begins to seep into the withered performance. The staff begin to murmur in awe, whispering that it is like he is speaking directly to the girl, Toka, through the piano. The emotions felt in the performance now, compared to when he first started, are incredibly different. The director rubs his chin in sheer delight, realizing the direction he intended is even more bizarre than he expected. Seeing everyone's reactions, he knows his intention hit the mark perfectly, showing that the heart of the stranger, Kiyoshi Iyoda, is merely bizarre and not actually dead. Overjoyed, he shouts cut, praising Woo-jin for a great take. The director approaches the piano, certain that not just the people in the room, but every future audience member will fall for this absurd variation. He thanks Woo-jin for his hard work on the sudden edition and happily announces that the filming for BSS is almost finished. He asks if Woo-jin is returning to Korea today. Woo-jin confirms, respectfully bowing and apologizing for having to leave for a while. The director assures him it is quite all right and looks forward to seeing him at the next shoot. Walking away, Woo-jin mentally reviews his incredibly tight schedule, noting that he has a food commercial for the Kasihi group next, then heading to Korea right after finishing, and eventually tackling his upcoming project, Leech. His thoughts are abruptly interrupted when President Choi approaches him in a panic, scaring him as she demands to know what exactly he has done. Confused, Woo-jin asks what she means. He slides his phone over to him, revealing that all over Japanese social media, a video of him playing the piano is trending wildly. The video has already amassed over 3.24 million views, plastered alongside trending tags for his name and the song Merry-Go-Round of Life. Comments flood the screen, with fans declaring they are listening all night and questioning if he played that specific song on purpose to boost his popularity, knowing Japanese people love it. President Choi states that the internet is plastered with his name. Internally, Woo-jin's mind goes blank with shock. When President Choi assumes he played the piano knowing this excellent outcome would happen, Woo-jin maintains his cool facade, calmly agreeing that he figured as much. In reality, he is internally screaming, completely caught off guard and wondering why a single piano performance is causing such a massive fuss. Today, as usual, Woo-jin is deeply flustered. While Woo-jin fulfills his schedule filming a commercial for a new ramen product from a Kasihi Group food subsidiary, the online tags multiply at a frantic pace. A few negative comments surface, accusing him of playing just to make himself stand out. However, the atmosphere shifts drastically once again when a post appears from a voice actress named Asami Seiya. She introduces herself as the mother of Asami Yusako, the girl who received the piano performance as a birthday present from Kang Woo-jin. She explains the deeply touching reason why he decided to play the piano for one specific person. Netizens are moved to tears by the backstory. The story spreads like a movie, going beyond a simple heartwarming tale and driving Japanese netizens wild. With it, the public's perception changes entirely. Suspicion vanishes and admiration turns into deep emotion. Indifference becomes favor, and favor approaches something close to worship. Soon, in Korea as well, news of his piano skills shaking Japan are revealed, causing both countries to buzz day after day over Kang Woo-jin. In the meantime, Woo-jin is on a flight bound for Korea. Sitting comfortably in the luxury cabin, he is relieved they could leave secretly without any reporters around. He feels like he dropped a nuclear bomb and then ran away, though he admits to himself that it isn't like he acted while calculating that things would turn out this way in the first place. He hopes things will quiet down once he finishes his schedule in Korea and heads back to Japan. More importantly, he remembers that he has to start as a judge for the project Leech the next time he goes back to Japan. Deciding to prepare, he opens the script to give it another thorough read. The script for Leech begins with articles surrounding a conglomerate family, detailing a glamorous life, and the endless incidents and accidents hidden in its darkness. The scene then transitions to a massive manufacturing company warehouse where Korean and foreign workers move busily. Mixed among them is the protagonist of Leech, a man named Park Ha-seong. After losing his family and drowning in debt, Ha-seong is a character who does nothing but work himself to death to pay it off. On weekday mornings, he works at the manufacturing company as a non-regular worker, and at night, he works as a designated driver. He cannot even rest on weekends, drifting through whatever short-term part-time jobs he can find. Ha-seong is someone who had given up on college and only worked because he had no money. His late mother was deaf, making sign language the one thing he is confident in. Other than that, he has no notable abilities, save for his unusual observation skills and his strong work ethic. One day, Ha-seong shows up for a short-term part-time job as a staff member for a charity event hosted by a large church. However, despite the title, it is actually a gathering for people with power. There, he encounters people he should never have met. He meets the eldest daughter and mistress of a conglomerate family, Yoo Hyun-jae, and her husband, Chairman Yoon Jeong-bi, who is known as a male Cinderella. Yoo Hyun-jae is deaf, just like Ha-seong's late mother, and can only communicate through sign language. Ha-seong, who happens to know sign language, steps in and ends up having a comfortable conversation with her. Seeing his wife conversing so happily, the chairman asks Ha-seong to become a companion for her. Ha-seong initially thinks it is a waste of time and tries to decline politely, stating he is in the middle of working. But the thought that he could earn much more money than his current hourly wage flashes through his mind, revealing a bit of his desperate inner thoughts. The chairman takes a liking to Ha-seong's desperation and hands him a business card along with 2 million won, showing his intent to buy his sign language skills and time. Though he doesn't know why the card was handed to him, Ha-seong stays with Yoo Hyun-jae until the party ends, engaging in trivial conversation. After the event, he dwells on why the chairman gave him the card and hesitates over whether to contact him or not. Feeling like it is some kind of opportunity, he finally texts the number. As soon as he makes contact, the chairman calls him, and a short while later, a luxury sedan appears in front of Ha-seong's studio apartment. Boarding the luxury sedan, Ha-seong listens as the chairman explains that it was the first time he had seen his usually indifferent wife smile like that. He then offers to pay off Ha-seong's debts in his stead and proposes a highly lucrative job. He offers Ha-seong the position of secretary for his wife, with a monthly salary of 6 million won. The job description involves moving into that house and staying by his wife's side as a companion at all times. Though it is called a secretary, in reality, it is closer to a servant. The chairman then asks for one more crucial thing, to make his wife blindly rely on Ha-seong. To Ha-seong, who had desperately endured amidst a mountain of debt, the offer is excessively sweet and something he can never refuse. Staring down at his hands, a dark smile creeps across his face. He believes this is the shortcut to turning his life around, but in truth, it is merely the beginning of a catastrophe. A black van pulls into the parking lot outside a modern, brick-faced theater. Woo-jin steps out, his face pale and his eyes heavy with exhaustion. He mentally sighs, lamenting the fact that he has to rush to work right after getting off a plane from Japan. Beside him, his President Choi apologizes profusely. President Choi explains that he really wanted to let Woo-jin rest today, but his schedule is completely packed, even after squeezing it down as much as possible. Woo-jin replies calmly that it is fine. The President Choi goes on to mention that the people who felt uncomfortable with Woo-jin joining as a judge for the upcoming production of Leech have been largely filtered out. However, he warns that the actors who came to this small theater are still all top tier. Seeking reassurance, the President Choi asks Woojin if he is shaking at all. Keeping a perfectly stoic face, Woojin replies that it is the same as usual. Internally, though, he admits he is a bit intimidated, wondering why he agreed to do this again while realizing that just sitting still would probably be even more uncomfortable. They enter the theater, and a murmur of surprise ripples through the gathered crowd of actors as Woojin walks down the aisle. Surveying the room, Woojin thinks it looks mid-sized rather than small. A gray-haired veteran, director, approaches and warmly greets him. The director acknowledges that Woojin must be tired from coming straight from Japan. Woojin bows respectfully, thanking the director for taking the time for the audition. The director tells him he can just sit and not feel pressured, but quickly shifts the topic. He asks about a piano video of Woojin that surfaced while he was in Japan, noting it became a huge topic of discussion. Flustered, Woojin downplays the event, saying he just played casually. The director laughs heartily, pointing out that it wasn't the skill of someone who has only played for a year or two. He notes that the more he looks at Woojin, the more mysterious he becomes. The director then asks if Woojin is joining PD Song's next project, Beneficial Evil. When Woojin confirms that he is, the director looks at him with deep admiration. He tells Woojin not to push himself too hard, calling him the actor who will lead the Korean acting scene, and stating that if he stops, the industry will suffer a massive loss. Internally, the director reflects that he doesn't have much time left himself, and Woojin is the actor who will connect his history and goals to Hollywood in a short time. Shifting back to the audition, the director reveals that the number of confirmed actors has increased by 1. He announces that veteran actress Oh Hee-ryung will be taking the role of Yoo Hyun-jae. Woojin is visibly surprised by the news. Oh Hee-ryung is a revered veteran of over 25 years who still looks to be in her 30s despite being over 50. Thanks to her luxurious and sophisticated image, she is a top actress still active in numerous works, and her synchronization with this new role is considered to be absolutely insane. As Woojin processes this information, another man approaches, asking if they are doing a rehearsal. It is the esteemed actor Shim Han-ho. He greets Woojin warmly, mentioning he has been keeping up with his great work, and asks if Woojin has done some analysis on the script for Leech. Woojin, admiring the older man's incredible veteran aura, replies that he has to some extent and is currently still working on it. They shake hands respectfully, with Shim Han-ho expressing his anticipation for the results. The director announces that since everyone seems ready, they will slowly start the audition, asking everyone to take their seats. Sitting in the front row alongside Shim Han-ho, the director consults his notes and announces that the first actor is Jin Yi-jun. The director notes that this is the first time he's seen an actor take on the role of a director rather than a director. As the director ponders aloud who the acting partner for each applicant will be, Woojin suddenly speaks up. Without hesitation, he declares that he will be the acting partner. The declaration sends shockwaves through the theater. The director and Shim Han-ho turn in surprise, and the surrounding crowd bursts into confused murmurs. Shim Han-ho asks if Woojin really wants to read as the partner, noting it would definitely be more helpful for the evaluation, but questioning if he is truly okay with taking on that burden. Woojin casually agrees that he doesn't mind. The director panics, whispering that if Woojin suddenly acts as the partner, the atmosphere will become awkward, and asks what made him think of going that far. Internally, Woojin admits it is just because he is bored and slightly nervous, figuring he might as well act instead of secretly tossing aside a judge's duties by just sitting still. Out loud, he merely states that he thinks he will be able to see better from the stage. As Woojin walks up to the stage, the director realizes his true intent. He notes that a ton of actors gave up on the audition just because of the news that Kang Woojin is a judge, discarding their pride instead of relying on their name value. However, even those who remained haven't fully shaken off their discomfort with his presence. By stepping onto the stage, Woojin intends to show them not with words, but with actions, exactly why he is sitting in the judge's seat. Smiling with satisfaction, the director decides to leave it to Woojin, warning the auditioning actors that they had better brace themselves. Shim Han-ho approaches Woojin with a script, asking if he needs it. Woojin declines, stating he can do it without looking. Shim nervously tries to tell Woojin not to overdo it and to just perform moderately, but the director cuts him off. He tells Woojin to do whatever he wants, granting him permission to follow his analyzed scenario and add variations. The director is eager to see Woojin perform with his seal fully broken. Woojin takes his place opposite the first applicant, Jin Yi-jun. Staring at Woojin's imposing posture, Yi-jun breaks into a nervous sweat. He recalls that during the filming of Drug Dealer, he was the challenger and Woojin was the lead. Now, in less than half a year, their positions have flipped completely. He is intimidated by Woojin's crazy speed of growth. The director asks Yi-jun which of the 3 scenes from the partial script he prepared. Yi-jun replies that he chose the scene where the eldest son of the Chaebol family confronts Park Ha-sung. Seeing Woojin standing there without a script, Yi-jun remembers how Woojin mastered a revised scenario for Drug Dealer in just 10 minutes. He realizes that acting as the partner for everyone means Woojin has to seamlessly play multiple roles besides his own character, Park Ha-sung. He wonders if Woojin can really pull all of that off or if he will just casually read the lines. Pushing his doubts aside, Yi-jun announces to the director that he is ready. The director calls for action. Yi-jun immediately steps into the role of Yoon Ya-ho, the eldest son of the Chaebol family that forms the background of Leech, and the character with the most extreme lust for power. He strides aggressively toward Woojin and demands to know how Mother's condition is lately. The narrative notes that the version of Park Ha-sung facing Yoon Ya-ho right now is entirely different from the beginning of the story. It is a state where defeatism has disappeared, and dark desire is taking its place. Everyone watches closely, anxious to see how Woojin will portray this shifted dynamic. Woojin sits back comfortably in a chair, completely relaxed. With a perfectly calm demeanor, he replies, "Madam, no, Mother's condition is very good." The deliberate slip of the tongue catches Yi-jun completely off guard. He demands to know what he means by calling her mother, aggressively telling the servant to watch what he is saying. Woojin just smiles lazily, claiming he just told him exactly how it is, because she told him to call her that. He then mockingly asks if he should call Yoon Ya-ho his older brother instead. Furious, Yi-jun lunges forward and violently grabs Woojin by the collar, screaming at him not to call her mother. He yells that if he is a servant, he should act like one and just suck blood like a leech, warning him not to step out of line and try to dip his feet in another world. Unfazed, Woojin maintains his lazy smile and tells him he can't do that because Mother would be sad. Suddenly, the dynamic violently shifts. Woojin reaches up and firmly grips Yi-jun's wrist. His relaxed expression turns incredibly sharp and predatory. He asks Yi-jun if they are in different spaces right now, pulling the furious actor down close to his face. The atmosphere contorts with a distorted, glitch-like psychological weight as Woojin whispers intensely, "We're in the same place. Look, we're here together." The sheer intensity of the performance leaves the audience murmuring in absolute awe. The director smiles broadly. He expected greatness, but is amazed that Woojin had no intention of doing this half-heartedly, bringing out Park Ha-sung's hidden side right away. Shim Han-ho watches in stunned silence, a drop of sweat running down his face. He recognizes the psychological display as Ripley's syndrome, the absolute core and everything of the character Park Ha-sung. He knows that in Leech, this change isn't revealed all at once, but builds up step by step throughout the entire scenario. He questions how it is even possible for an actor to suddenly display Ripley's syndrome perfectly without the preceding and succeeding emotional buildup. He realizes it is far beyond just acting well. It is to the point where the version of Park Ha-sung he had imagined in his own head feels lacking. Director finally understands exactly how Director Kwon feels. As Woojin sits casually in his chair, completely dominating the stage and the room, the director watches with a pounding heart, thrilled to witness the terrifying character he envisioned running wild in reality. The hallway outside the audition room hums with nervous whispers as the actors react to the sudden news that Kang Woo-jin will be acting as their audition partner. Among the crowd sits Han So-jin, a rookie actress in her 3rd year, who first caught the public's eye 2 years ago. That same year, she won Best New Actress at the Blue Dragon Film Awards, an impressive achievement for someone who had just emerged from a short period of anonymity. Despite her early accomplishments, her sudden rise was inevitably overshadowed by the massive emergence and dominance of Kang Woo-jin. Gripping her script tightly, So-jin trembles with competitive drive, resolving not to give up. She tells herself that if he is right in front of her, it simply means she has the opportunity to surpass him. Bolstering her own confidence, she stands up quickly when her name is called for her audition, convincing herself that having Woo-jin acting as her partner is actually a good thing. Entering the audition room, So-jin bows politely to the panel of judges and introduces herself. However, as she looks up and sees the seated judges alongside Woo-jin, standing quietly on the stage. She internally gasps, feeling as though she is standing before giants. She struggles to stay calm as Woo Jin steps forward to shake her hand, calmly stating that he looks forward to working with her. So Jin returns the greeting, secretly vowing to beat and surpass him. When Woo Jin casually tells her to go ahead and do as she pleases, So Jin is momentarily taken aback, wondering what he is thinking, interpreting his calm demeanor as a dismissal of her ambitious declaration. Her spirit flares like a blazing fire, and she silently vows to the heavens that she will definitely surpass Kang Woo Jin. The scene begins with a call for action. So Jin is aiming for the role of Yoon Jimin, the youngest daughter among 3 children, and the audition scene demands a heated confrontation with her father, Chairman Yoon Jeongbi. So Jin immediately dives into her performance, yelling that it wasn't her, and demanding to know why her father even likes that servant or leech, angrily asking if he thinks she is crazy. Woo Jin stands in silence, letting her outburst hang in the air. So Jin is briefly confused mid-scene, wondering how Woo Jin, who is supposed to be playing Park Ha-seong, can also adequately act as Chairman Yoon Jeongbi. Her doubts vanish the second Woo Jin clasps his hands together. A dark, oppressive aura instantly surrounds him. His expression shifts into a chilling, empty smile as he speaks in a low, commanding tone, calling her his beloved daughter. He asks her to look him straight in the eyes and tell him if it is really not her. The sheer intensity of his transformation causes director and another judge to leap from their seats in shock. So Jin stares with wide eyes, paralyzed by the realization that the man before her feels like a completely different person, as if something else has been merged with him. Woo Jin continues, his voice cutting through the tension, asking her again simply because he wants to know. Woo Jin's terrifying performance stems from his deep interpretation of Chairman Yoon Jeongbi, a character driven entirely by power and a desire for dominance. To the chairman, love and affection are merely tools to maintain his power, and his children were also just the final safety measures to hold onto his relationship with his wife. He acts out paternal love, but real love never existed in the first place. To bring this cold reality to light, Woo Jin utilized his unique ability, choosing the persona of Kiyoshi for the role synthesis. Just as Kiyoshi views a bizarre sacrifice like a homework assignment, Yoon Jeongbi sees his children as objects that would merely be an inconvenience if lost. Of course, if they were lost, there was nothing to be done about it. Channeling this unsettling essence, Woo Jin steps closer to So Jin and gently grips her shoulders. He tells her that he cherishes her, his daughter, which is why he is giving her advice. He warns her not to forget that she is of the ruling class and that she must own that leech. Leaning in closer with an unwavering, predatory gaze, he explains that only then can she cherish it, and only then can she break it. As So Jin trembles under his psychological weight, Woo Jin smiles softly and reminds her that anything she owns will eventually become boring or broken, and it is also the burden of a ruler to dispose of it. The terrifying depth of his acting crushes So Jin's resolve. She realizes that his interpretation means the chairman breaks the things he owns, and all she wants is to run away from this monster named Father right in front of her. Woo Jin seals the scene with a final, chilling affirmation, telling her that she is his daughter, Jimin. As the scene concludes, the judges murmur in absolute awe. They marvel at how Woo Jin delivered such a powerful performance without even looking at the script. One judge finally understands director On Gabok's immense respect for the young actor, noting that with talent like that, you can't help but make him a judge. The panel reflects on how he perfectly embodied Ripley syndrome as Park Ha-seong, but to think he can pull off Chairman Yoon Jeongbi like that as well is staggering. They realize the true reason Woo Jin volunteered to be the acting partner, instead of simply observing as a judge. He is personally demonstrating the standard he expects for every single role in the film. By executing this on his own, he is basically telling the auditioning actors to analyze their scripts until their tails fall off, and to dig even deeper into their roles. From the back of the auditorium, top actress Oh Hye-ryung watches with a quiet smile, noting that she came without much thought, but has just seen something incredible. Finally, direct calls the cut, signaling that everyone did a great job and that the long auditions have finally come to an end. As the tension leaves the room, Woo Jin exhales, thinking to himself that the session was intense, but he assumes he wasn't too bad as an acting partner. He believes no one can say he was slacking off and skipping his duties as a judge, and he even swapped the other roles with synthesis, so they didn't overlap. Oblivious to the absolute awe surrounding him, Woo Jin wonders if he did something wrong since the judges are looking at him strangely. He worries that there shouldn't have been a problem, especially since he didn't even give it his absolute all when acting out the other roles just in case. He assumes they must be puzzled that he acted out the other roles. Director suddenly approaches him, praising him for firmly establishing his authority as a judge to everyone, while simultaneously setting the standard for acting. Thoroughly puzzled by the mention of authority and standards, Woo Jin decides his best course of action is to not panic and simply maintain his stoic and composed persona, while the surrounding judges and staff nod in complete agreement. A judge eagerly approaches Woo Jin, asking how much time he devoted to interpreting the role of Chairman Yoon Jeongbi, while also balancing Park Ha-seong and the other roles. Maintaining his calm facade, Woo Jin casually replies that he didn't spend that much time on it, just doing it in his spare time, so he wouldn't be lacking as an audition partner. The judge is left speechless and sweating, realizing that what they saw today isn't even everything Woo Jin is capable of. Oh Hye-young then steps forward, warmly greeting Woo Jin and the judges. She tells him it is fascinating to meet him and feels like she is looking at a celebrity, to which Woo Jin respectfully replies that it is actually the other way around. With a knowing smile, she notes that she fully understands the standard he is setting now. With the auditions concluded, the core actors of the film Leech are gathered in the hall, including the monster actor Sim Han-ho, a veteran standing shoulder to shoulder with nearly 30 years of experience. As Sim Han-ho and Woo Jin leave the room, Oh Hye-young comments that Woo Jin's overwhelming impact has steered the audition evaluations in a strange direction. When asked if actor Sim Han-ho will be all right under this new pressure, director smiles confidently. He states that Han-ho is not someone they need to worry about, suggesting they simply wait and see what the veteran brings to the table, leaving the judge to realize that the final outcome of this legendary cast is now more definitive than ever. The morning sun casts long shadows over the multi-lane highway as a sleek black passenger van cruises smoothly along the asphalt. Inside the spacious cabin, Kang Woo Jin sits quietly in the passenger row, his dark hair neatly styled, dressed casually in a gray button-down over a white shirt. Across from him sits a female staff member with short dark hair. Woo Jin notes that somehow the auditions wrapped up without a hitch. As Woo Jin gazes straight ahead, he reflects on the recent events, acknowledging internally that, of course, there were some misunderstandings and illusions involved. He silently wonders if his first schedule today is a meeting with producer Song regarding the upcoming project, Beneficial Evil. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted when the female staff member leans forward, urgently holding out her smartphone. She calls his name, telling him to look at the screen, explaining that Japanese social media is completely blowing up with talk about him. Woo Jin voices a mild hum of curiosity as she turns the phone toward him. She asks if he knows the woman who made the post, pointing out that if you search for Kang Woo Jin on social media, this is the very first post that comes up. The screen displays a translated post expressing deep gratitude to a Korean actor who is currently making waves in Japan with his piano improvisations. The staff member explains that the mother of the young girl from the hotel elevator incident, the one who said her dream was to be a voice actress, is actually a famous Japanese voice actress herself. Internally, Woo Jin's eyes widen in sheer shock, stunned to learn the mother's identity. Outwardly, however, he maintains his stoic composure. President Choi smiles as he listens from the front seat. The female staff member excitedly details how the voice actress's social media post is being shared all over, putting all of Japan in an absolute frenzy. She swipes to a trending list on her screen, proudly showing that Kang Woo Jin piano performance is sitting firmly at the #1 spot. It has even been mentioned on famous variety shows and is dominating the top trends in Japan. President Choi chimes in, noting that it is a perfect situation. He points out that Woo Jin was already getting a massive amount of buzz because of the piano performance alone, but the voice actress basically gave the whole story a heartwarming twist. Woo Jin questions if that is really the case, and the female staff member quickly agrees. President Choi admits he expected the video to spread to some extent, but the situation has changed entirely. It went from being just a viral issue to a touching, heartwarming story that moves people's hearts. He adds that because the person involved is a famous voice actress in Japan, the narrative is incredibly compelling. President Choi remarks that Woo Jin probably did it out of pure sincerity. But in the stuffy entertainment industry, this kind of genuine moment works like magic. Woo Jin simply nods his head, calmly stating that he knows. Looking back through the rearview mirror, President Choi smiles warmly. He explains that Woo Jin is a Korean actor, but he has a lot of qualities that touch the public sentiment of Japan. He notes that while it might be similar in Korea, Japan goes much crazier for these kinds of heroic, sincere stories. President Choi warns that if Woo Jin were in Japan right now, reporters would have swarmed him, and it would have been chaotic. He then asks what Woo Jin plans to do, specifically inquiring if he is going to post a reply to the voice actress on social media. Woo Jin considers this, internally reasoning that there is no need for that since he didn't play the piano expecting things to turn out like this. And besides, making a post would be a bit too fussy. He voices his decision, stating simply that he will just leave it be. Choi agrees with the approach, noting that the Japanese media is already covering it extensively on their own anyway, and it's not like it blew up because they planned it from the start. He concludes that they will first have to assess the situation to see exactly what is happening in Japan, adding with a grin that at this rate, when Woo Jin goes back, he might actually be treated like a hero. Sometime later, the black van pulls up outside a towering, modern office building under a clear blue sky. Woo Jin steps inside and greets PD Song Manhwa, a ruggedly handsome man with a neatly trimmed beard, who warmly welcomes him back. PD Song laughs, mentioning that it has been a while, and that he hears Woo Jin has been the center of quite a few headlines lately. The two men, along with the President Choi, settle into the plush gray sofas of a spacious meeting room, resting his arms on the large wooden table between them. PD Song gets straight to business. He states that they are currently handling the pre-production for Beneficial Evil with extreme care, and at the same time, they are deciding on its final destination. Woo Jin questions the term final destination, wondering internally if he means the broadcasting station, realizing he never actually heard which station would air the drama. PD Song explains that unlike before, he is an independent producer now, not an affiliated director, so the platform has become very important. He reveals that while Woo Jin was in Japan, he had meetings with everyone public broadcasters, comprehensive programming channels, cable networks, and even OTT platforms. Even before the news broke that Woo Jin had joined the cast, there was a lot of interest, but likely because of Woo Jin's recent viral headlines. Everyone was practically begging to broadcast it. President Choi acknowledges that PD Song 2 name value from his previous hit is enough on its own, and combining that with writer Choi Hana makes it an all-in situation. Because the overall atmosphere, pacing, and narrative received stellar evaluations across the board, it felt like a waste to just hand it over to domestic broadcasting stations. Initially, PD Song notes, the possibility of Beneficial Evil going to the SBC network was the highest, especially since his previous hit was with them, and he is familiar with their system. However, the situation shifted when they received a massive offer from Netflix. He explains that while their terms are similar to domestic offers, there is one key difference. Netflix proposed a challenge. Beneficial Evil would be launched globally as a Netflix original. The words hit Woo Jin hard. Internally, he stammers, completely taken aback by the idea of a sudden global launch. Outwardly, his face remains a mask of calm composure as he asks for clarification, verifying if it is going to be released worldwide. PD Song confirms, stating they want to take a shot at the global market. It will be available domestically, but the main stage will be the entire world. PD Song leans forward, stressing that while there are a lot of details, the opinion of the main lead is the most important factor right now. He admits a global launch sounds enticing, but asks if it doesn't also come with a significant risk. If they go with a domestic broadcaster like SBC, a certain level of success is guaranteed because Woo Jin is known as a ratings guarantee. Conversely, the overseas market lacks that advantage entirely. If the show hits big on Netflix, the payoff will be staggering, but if it flops, the impact will be twice as bad. Because of this high risk, PD Song insists he doesn't intend to force the decision. If Woo Jin's thoughts differ, Woo Jin asks about writer Hana's opinion. PD Song chuckles, explaining that her opinion is that anywhere is fine. She is currently much more focused on her writing than anything else. Therefore, PD Song intends to follow Woo Jin's lead, because the one carrying Beneficial Evil will be Woo Jin himself. To provide full context, PD Song adds that if they choose Netflix, the project will switch to a full pre-production system, and Netflix personnel will also be assigned to the production. Woo Jin sits back, his mind racing. He realizes there is a lot depending on him and wonders if he should just beat around the bush and see what the producer thinks. He admits to himself that he isn't fully aware of the various interests involved. So whichever path holds more meaning is probably the better choice. He voices this exact thought aloud. PD Song smiles, asking what that sharp intuition of Woo Jin's says about the situation. Without missing a beat, Woo Jin flatly responds that he doesn't particularly feel like it's a bad idea. Taking this as a green light, PD Song asks if Woo Jin is prepared to go global. Woo Jin confidently answers in the affirmative. Elated, PD Song leaps up from the sofa, exclaiming his approval. He reaches across the table, grabbing Woo Jin's hand in a firm handshake, declaring that they will take over the world with beneficial evil, and promising to run like their lives depend on it to match Woo Jin's ambitions. Woo Jin returns the handshake, politely agreeing. While inside, he is panicking. He realizes they are actually going global, feeling as though he is standing completely still, while the scale of everything around him keeps getting ridiculously massive. He decides he just needs to focus entirely on his acting. As PD Song steps away to briefly get in touch with the Netflix side, Woo Jin sits back down. A new thought crosses his mind regarding what happens to the grade of beneficial evil now. Deciding to take a quick look, he summons his spatial system. A shimmering black rectangle materializes in the air before him. He steps through it, descending into the endless, silent black void of his mind space. Standing in the dark expanse, Woo Jin looks at the glowing white script panels floating around him. His eyes widen in genuine shock. The grades for all his works have gone up by one entire level. He inspects the floating squares. The scenario for A Stranger's Bizarre Sacrifice is now S grade. The scenario for Island of the Missing is now SS grade. Even the script for Leech has increased to S grade. Trembling with anticipation, he turns to look at the script for Beneficial Evil. The glowing text reveals it is now an unprecedented SSS plus grade. He is flabbergasted, realizing the maximum grade has been updated yet again. He connects the dots, noting that the grade jumped immediately after they talked about the Netflix deal, wondering if the global launch means the show is destined to be a massive, explosive hit worldwide. The urge to tell someone bubbles up inside him. He wants to shout it to everyone, but knows he must keep the system a strict secret. Reaffirming his resolve, he crosses his arms, deciding he must restrain himself and only focus on the acting he can control. Before leaving the void, Woo Jin touches his chin, pondering why the grade for the film Leech also went up. He recalls director On Gabok mentioning something about setting a new standard for acting after the audition. He then considers another factor, the top actors that were recruited. He realizes that with Oh Hee-ryong, a true legend among actresses, joining the project, the cast list has reached an insane level. A heavy sense of responsibility settles over him, as he realizes he will have to put on a truly intense performance to stand shoulder to shoulder with such titans. Sometime later, the sliding door of the black van opens, and Woo Jin steps back inside the vehicle, returning to his seat in the parking lot. Almost immediately, the female staff member excitedly slides her phone over to him, announcing that the audition results for Leech are officially out. The screen shows a newly published article from Worry Entertainment, confirming the cast lineup. Following Shim Han-ho and Kang Woo-jin, the legendary Oh Hee-ryong, Jin Yi-jun, and Han So-jin have all been officially cast. Looking at the list, Woo-jin immediately notices the absences, internally noting that Hong Ha-yeon and H. Schwerin didn't make the cut. He glances toward the driver's seat and wonders if he should send the two actresses a message to cheer them up, or if that would be a bit too much. He quietly asks if they should contact Senior Ha-yeon. President Choi shakes his head, advising that there is no need. He points out that Hong Ha-yeon hasn't only been in this industry for a day or two, and that Woo-jin doesn't really have to contact H. Schwerin either, as they are both hardened professionals. President Choi adds that their respective management teams have probably handled the comforting by now anyway. Hearing this, Woo-jin internally decides to simply maintain his reliable poker face, glad that the dilemma is quickly solved. Moving on from the casting news, President Choi pulls out a small green notepad to go over the upcoming schedule. He details a packed itinerary. There is a character interview shoot for their post-production project, a promotional teaser shoot for marketing, and after that, the Kang Woo-jin alter ego Nurub shoot, featuring guest Ryo Young-min. President Choi even mentions they are considering a top Japanese actor for the guest after that. As Woo-jin silently absorbs the sheer volume of work for the day, President Choi casually drops one final, massive piece of information. He mentions they are starting to get interest from Hyuksang. Wu Jin freezes, internally repeating the name, wondering if he means the prestigious Hyuksang Art Awards. President Choi quickly confirms this, explaining that the ceremony covers both film and TV categories and serves as a grand wrap-up for the previous year. Flashing a confident smile, President Choi tells Wu Jin that considering his current, unstoppable momentum, he probably won't be walking away with just 1 or 2 trophies. President Choi notes the event is scheduled to be held around mid-March, telling Wu Jin he can certainly look forward to it. Sitting quietly in the back of the van, Wu Jin swallows hard, his eyes wide as the immense weight of the upcoming awards, and his rapidly exploding stardom settles firmly onto his shoulders. Exclusive news drops that PD Song Manhwa, writer Choi Nana, and Kang Woo-jin are uniting to bypass traditional broadcast routes, heading straight to Netflix for a worldwide release. Public anticipation skyrockets immediately. Online commenters express disbelief at a global release for a Netflix original, marveling at PD Song's creative brain, and noting that Kang Woo-jin's streak is absolutely insane right now. However, a wave of skepticism simultaneously starts brewing. Unsurprisingly, some of the harshest critics are the domestic networks that lost out during the fierce bidding war. It is a mix of bitter resentment at being cast aside and cold, realistic assessments of the market. Industry experts warn that it is simply too soon to take the series global, pointing out that no matter how exceptional the production value might be, the creators are still total nobodies to foreign audiences. Yet, PD Song Manwoo remains entirely unfazed by the chatter. Viewing the critics as a bunch of absolute busybodies, he is simply too swamped to lose any sleep over public opinion, lacking the spare time or energy to fret. Right around that same moment, a behind-the-scenes featurette for Island of the Missing goes live across all official streaming networks and media platforms. The exclusive character profile video opens with Ryo Young-min in a full military uniform, introducing himself and his role as Lieutenant Choi Yu-ti. Within a mere 2 hours of hitting the web, the clip easily clears 500,000 views, landing at a precise 508,332 views. Online comments flood in, boasting about legendary director Kwon Kai-teik being at the helm alongside a stellar A-list cast. Yet again, the massive hype concentrates entirely on the man at the absolute epicenter of the storm. Viewers frantically discuss Kang Woo-jin's brief appearance in the middle of the clip, questioning if his wacky role implies a psycho or a split personality type. Fans declare they are buying a ticket the second it drops, claiming Woo-jin genuinely transforms into a whole different person for every single project. Riding high on this explosive wave of popularity, the momentum shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. Over at the HTBS cable network, inside the variety show division, the atmosphere is electric. A producer rushes toward producer Yi, shouting that the latest viewership numbers have just dropped. Propelled entirely by Kang Woo-jin's incredible star power, the ratings for our dining table have already climbed to a staggering 19%. The entire room holds its collective breath as an older staff member reads the document, desperately hoping they can finally shatter the elusive 20% milestone. The official count for the episode comes in at exactly 20.4%. The office erupts into joyous cheering. A team member calls it an absolute miracle to crack 20% in the current television landscape. Producer Yoon humbly laughs off the praise, insisting he cannot take the credit since the cast did all the heavy lifting out there. His colleagues quickly agree that casting Kang Woo-jin was the absolute anchor, praising it as pure genius that gives the show the perfect punch. Amid the celebration, writer Kim approaches producer Yoon and discreetly pulls him aside. She whispers that she literally just got off the phone with the corporate marketing team from a major food manufacturer. They are highly interested in mass-producing and commercializing the seaweed flake makguksu recipe Woo-jin whipped up, intending to sell it directly on the market. Back on the elegant restaurant filming set, the crew wraps up another successful shoot. Staff members exchange warm thanks, noting that the flavors turned out exceptionally well, and praising the incredible work of everyone involved. Standing by the marble counter, Kang Woo-jin and Ryo Young-min return the compliments. Young-min notes that the meal was seriously delicious, before looking around and asking where CEO Choi headed off to. Woo-jin explains that the CEO had to slip away early to attend another business meeting. Young-min then asks if Woo-jin would mind passing a quick word along to him, admitting he does not actually have the CEO's direct number. Woo-jin calmly agrees, prompting Young-min to drop a massive bombshell. Young-min explains that his current exclusive contract is reaching its end, and his company is about to undergo a corporate split. He asks Woo Jin to convey that he is genuinely looking to leap over to BW Entertainment. Internally, Woo Jin's eyes widen in absolute shock at this sudden development, but he maintains his stoic composure, giving a slight nod and assuring Youngmin that he will make sure the CEO gets the message. Moments later, Woo Jin receives an incoming call from CEO Choi. Stepping away to a quiet corridor, Woo Jin mentions the perfect timing, asking if the CEO wrapped up filming smoothly. Choi, currently driving his vehicle, replies that his meeting just finished up, and he is making his way. Wasting no time, Woo Jin relays the massive news about Ryo Youngmin explaining his contract situation and wanting to jump ship to their agency. Choi is instantly thrilled. He notes that a top-tier star of Youngmin's caliber walking away from his agency to look at BW is an opportunity he absolutely cannot sleep on, especially since they were already planning on expanding the agency's roster anyway. Choi promises to reach out to Youngmin that very second. Before hanging up, Choi reveals he has a couple of updates for Woo Jin as well. He explains that he literally just wrapped up a discussion with producer Yoon. Nongshim wants to manufacture and launch the seaweed flake makguksu Woo Jin, created as an instant cup noodle product. Woo Jin is completely bewildered, asking if the CEO is serious. Choi explains that they sounded out the production team first, before making a direct move, but the speed of the decision was unprecedented. Given how wild the audience feedback was, the company moved incredibly fast. While a crossover product is not entirely unheard of in the industry, it remains exceptionally rare. Choi confidently predicts that the moment it hits the shelves, it is going to fly off like absolute crazy. More than anything, once Kang Woo Jin's seaweed flake makguksu becomes a staple in convenience stores nationwide, his mainstream public visibility will multiply overnight. Choi calls it a massive, undisputed win from a pure branding perspective, noting that if it turns into a true blockbuster product, they will literally be making entertainment history. Nongshim is slated to handle the entire manufacturing side. Woo Jin's only job is to hand over the recipe and act as the official face of the brand, with his face going right on the actual packaging. On top of that, they have already agreed to debut the very first commercial for the cup noodles directly on the variety show. Woo Jin is blown away, admitting he is used to just shoving instant noodles down his throat and can hardly wait to see the actual product on store shelves. Choi tells him to leave all the corporate discussions and financial negotiations to him, promising to lock down a rock-solid contract. Choi then transitions to the final piece of business, noting that the dates for the second filming block of our dining table have just been finalized. He admits it has been a nightmare trying to coordinate everyone's overlapping schedules this time around. Given the logistics on the ground in Los Angeles, a full one-week shoot like last time is completely off the table. Instead, they are going for a short trip of about 4 to 5 days. While standard procedure would be to cut down the episode count, the showrunners are pushing their luck, determined to make the runtime work by any means necessary, even if it means filming the season finale back home in Korea. This means Woo Jin's very first commitment starting March 1st will be heading out for the second shoot of our dining table. He will also have to squeeze in a table read and a big press junket right before he takes off. Realizing the sheer volume of his upcoming commitments, Woo Jin mentally braces himself, knowing his itinerary is going to be packed to the absolute brim as he prepares to cross the ocean once again. A few days later, inside a sleek corporate office building, the grizzled director On meets with his production team. His assistant informs him that pre-production and set preparations are running slightly behind schedule. On stresses that they are on a razor-thin timeline and demands to know the earliest they can lock in the table read. When the assistant suggests the middle of March, On firmly rejects the idea. He orders them to drag it forward by a full week, claiming he will pull consecutive all-nighters to grind out the storyboards himself if he has to. He mandates pulling the script reading up to March 6th, followed by an official crank-in on the 8th. The assistant is stunned by the 48-hour turnaround, questioning if they can realistically dive straight from the first read into production basically overnight. On admits that while it is not impossible, whether the cast and the crew will go along with it is a whole other story. He insists they are just going to have to hustle hard, running post-production and editing simultaneously while they are actively shooting. He tells her to notify the talent that the script reading and principal photography are locked. Suddenly, On's cell phone rings. He answers to find Mr. Joseph Felton, a powerhouse Hollywood producer, on the other end of the line. Speaking in English, Joseph warmly greets director On, who is deeply surprised but pleased to hear from him. Joseph immediately asks to keep the nature of their discussion strictly confidential. He then asks if On would mind if he dropped by to shadow and observe the production set. On is shocked that Joseph is already tracking a project that is currently just spinning up, praising his intelligence network for knowing the working title of a movie all the way from Los Angeles. Joseph smoothly replies that major Hollywood filmmakers and various festival scouts are already keeping a very close eye on On's next project, given that it marks his historic 100th film and is explicitly targeting another grand prize. Still, On presses to know exactly what is driving this sudden desire to visit his set. Putting it plainly, Joseph reveals that there is a specific Korean actor who has thoroughly caught his eye, which is why he is making arrangements to fly out to Korea personally. Joseph explains his belief that true acting talent can only be properly evaluated live on a working set, away from the post-production variables of a finished film. He needs to witness their performance firsthand to be absolutely certain of their limitless potential. On silently notes that Joseph Felton is a household name among Hollywood elite producers, wondering what on earth is making him take such a sudden interest in a local Korean talent. He ponders if Joseph has an active project in development or is simply scouting to expand his international roster. But more importantly, he wonders who the actual actor is. Joseph adds that he already has an upcoming trip scheduled to Seoul to iron out logistical details with local theatrical distributors regarding an upcoming release. Hoping to sync that trip to scout the film set, Joseph confirms his plans align perfectly with On's production track. On agrees to extend the invitation, confirming that they literally just locked in their crankin' date and opening shoot schedule. Although On has no idea which specific actor Joseph has his sights on, he recognizes that if things go well, this visit will open massive doors for everyone involved, setting the stage for an unprecedented international crossover. Outside the towering headquarters of The Glass, a massive crowd of reporters gathers for the island of the missing press conference. Inside the grand hall, journalists ready their cameras, murmuring amongst themselves about the impressive lineup. One reporter notes the presence of master director Kwon Kai-teek and a roster of top actors, while another eagerly anticipates Kang Woo-jin's arrival. Since the young actor constantly makes headlines but is rarely seen at official public events, rumors swirl that he might skip today as well. However, a nearby colleague quickly shuts down the speculation, confirming with the event staff that Woo-jin is 100% attending. Suddenly, the heavy doors swing open, and a blinding barrage of camera flashes erupts across the room. Kang Woo-jin strides in, looking sharply dressed and entirely composed in a black jacket over a simple white shirt. But beneath his stoic exterior, Woo-jin is internally panicking. He wonders why his entrance is so incredibly grand, and notes the overwhelming number of reporters. Glancing back, he realizes with a shock that he is the first one entering. He quickly remembers waiting backstage, where he mindlessly nodded at a staff member's cue and walked right in without thinking. Woo-jin politely apologizes to the another co-star and asked him to take the seat. Co-star questions if the seating arrangement even matters. He asked Woo-jin to take the seat instead. Woo-jin feeling incredibly awkward about taking the spot right next to director Kwon Kai-teek. The event officially begins as the lively MC takes the microphone, announcing that the lead cast of Island of the Missing is all gathered. She starts the introductions with the director, who politely greets the energetic crowd. When the microphone is passed down the line, the camera flashes intensify exponentially as they focus on Woo-jin. The heavy pressure gnaws at him, but he reminds himself to play it cool, since he has navigated press conferences before. Holding the microphone, he calmly introduces himself as Kang Woo-jin, playing the role of Corporal Jin Sunchul. Listening to the clicking cameras and feeling the intense glares of the press, he swallows hard. He realizes the atmosphere is insanely heavy, finally understanding the immense weight top-tier lead actors endure when starring in a film by a master like director Kwon Kai-teek. Still, he resolves to maintain his collected concept as his co-stars finish their introductions. Wrapping up the initial greetings, the MC moves on to questions for the actors. She addresses Woo-jin directly, calling him the hottest star right now, and asks what he thinks is the unique charm of Island of the Missing internally. Woo-jin smirks, considering this a piece of cake, since he memorized the advanced questionnaire. He smoothly answers that he believes it is the twists, explaining that there are many unimaginable twists throughout the film that won't give the audience's eyes or ears a moment to rest. He congratulates himself on nailing the response without a single mistake. Building on his answer, the MC points out that his acting varies so drastically between projects that it is hard to believe he is the same person. She then asks what kind of performance he will be showing in this new film. Woo Jin instantly freezes. He frantically searches his memory, realizing this question was not on the approved list. With his mind completely blank, he decides to say something incredibly vague, keeping in mind that his character's split personality is supposed to be a closely guarded secret. Leaning into the microphone, he bluntly states that he played a cowardly piece of trash. The MC stammers, completely caught off guard by the harsh description. Before she can recover, director Kwon Kai-teek and the other actors break into genuine laughter at his deadpan delivery. Woo Jin blinks, completely bewildered as to why his co-stars find his panicked answer so amusing. The MC quickly recovers and opens the floor to the reporters for a cue and a session. Hands shoot up instantly across the room. She calls on a reporter in the front row wearing a navy tie. The reporter praises Woo Jin's incredible track record, noting that his projects have recently surpassed 8 million moviegoers, earning him the reputation of having a Midas touch. The journalist then asks how successful Woo Jin expects Island of the Missing to be. The MC tenses, recognizing the extreme sensitivity of the question. Woo Jin briefly considers giving a safe, evasive answer. Instead, he glances at the director and confidently declares that he believes it will surpass 10 million viewers. The room immediately buzzes with shocked murmurs when another reporter demands to know his reasoning for such a massive number. Woo Jin simply smiles slightly and replies that it is just a hunch. By 4 in the afternoon, the lunchtime press conference finally draws to a close, but the media storm is already raging. Articles flood the internet, highlighting the master filmmaker's return. Woo Jin's blunt description of his character and his arrogant yet fascinating claim of 10 million views based solely on a hunch. Netizens devour the news, laughing at his wild lack of filter and debating if his unbroken streak of success will hold true once again. With his overwhelming presence dominating the narrative, the public's focus shifts entirely onto Kang Woo Jin. Meanwhile, new breadcrumbs of his expanding empire steadily pile up. Headlines reveal that top actor Ryo Youngmin's transfer to BW Entertainment is imminent. Woo Jin's famous cooking recipe from his variety show is being commercialized before summer, and his social media following across Korea and Japan is exploding toward 20 million in just his second year. Everything weaves together rapidly and precisely, with Woo Jin at the absolute center as he powers through his packed schedule. As the dawn of March arrives, Woo Jin and his team are spotted at the airport, boarding a flight bound for Los Angeles for the second shoot of his variety show. Meanwhile, across the world in LA, a white van cruises down a sunlit street. Inside, 2 men converse in English. A bald man named Robert confirms their upcoming schedule in Korea. Joseph noting their arrival on the 3rd and distributor meetings starting on the 4th, before heading to director On Ga-bok's set on the 8th. His colleague, Robert, confirms he has reached out and will follow up once they touch down in Korea. Joseph then brings up Kang Woo Jin, asking if the actor is currently on his way to LA. Robert shows him an entertainment article on his tablet, confirming Woo Jin's departure for the variety show shoot. Robert offers to change Joseph's flight time so they can meet Woo Jin in America, but Joseph declines. He insists it is better to meet Woo Jin in Korea to observe him strictly as an actor, rather than a reality star. Robert acknowledges Woo Jin's immense talent, mentioning his commercialized cooking and popular piano performance videos on his personal YouTube channel. However, Robert expresses concern that with so many side gigs, the young star's focus and acting tension might start slipping. Joseph counters that, while that would normally be true, Kang Woo Jin might be the exception. He reminds Robert that Megan Stone, a casting director who has handled countless top Hollywood stars, officially called Woo Jin a star. Joseph points out that there has to be something uniquely special about him to earn such high praise. Remembering that Megan is also heading to Korea soon for the Black Elephant Film Festival, Robert realizes she is likely planning to scout around. Joseph notes with a knowing smile that anyone can see her trip to Korea is clearly because of Kang Woo Jin, emphasizing that a top-tier Hollywood casting director needs a tight grip on actor information worldwide. As their van arrives at its destination, Joseph opens the door and suggests they consider staying for the film festival as well. Just outside, the tinted window of a parked luxury car rolls down, revealing Miley Cara, sporting a confident smirk as the major players prepare to converge on Korea's rising star. Few days after wrapping up his second shoot, Kang Woo-jin arrives at the airport, exhausted and swarmed by a sea of flashing cameras. Dressed casually in a hoodie, cap, and black mask, he listens as his CEO apologizes for springing the schedule on him the moment he lands. The script reading for his new project, Leech, is set for 2 in the afternoon, and they need to head over right away. Woo-jin simply agrees, internally groaning about how brutal airplanes are and how they just aren't his thing. Thinking back to his audition for Leech, which caused a lot of misunderstandings due to various mix-ups, he hopes this script reading passes without any major incidents. Inside a sleek, modern building, Woo-jin sits entirely alone at a massive rectangular conference table. Outside the glass doors, a crowd of staff members whisper in surprise, amazed that he arrived early instead of putting on airs. Woo-jin silently goes over his script, sweating slightly under the pressure of the quiet room. He wonders if the crew is still gossiping about his intense audition and questions if he should have toned it down, though he quickly reminds himself that he actually did hold back. He finds sitting alone incredibly awkward and wishes someone else would arrive soon. His silent plea is answered when his co-lead, Han So-jin, enters the room. She greets him with a polite bow, surprised to find him there, as she thought she would be the first one to arrive, even coming 30 minutes early. Remembering the sheer shock of his audition, she openly admits that the performance he showed was truly astonishing, making her realize just how incredible he is. True to his usual stoic persona, Woo-jin flatly responds, "Is that so?" So-jin's expression hardens with determination as she declares that his talent only cemented her resolve to surpass him. Internally, Woo-jin is completely baffled, wondering why everyone constantly declares they are going to beat him every time they see him. Outwardly, he maintains his cool facade, telling her she can do whatever she prefers. So-jin observes his unwavering composure, feeling like she is staring at an insurmountable mountain, but she refuses to back down, telling him she looks forward to working with him again. The quiet tension is broken by the arrival of 2 other actors. So-jin stammer out greetings to their seniors. Oh Hye-ryung warmly tells So-jin there is no need for formalities and to just treat her like an older sister, though the young actors clearly find that too difficult. Oh Hye-ryung greeted Woo-jin next, noting that she saw him in the news so much it doesn't even feel like it's been a while. Han So-jin watches Woo-jin in awe, secretly jealous of how completely calm he remains in front of a veteran like Hye-ryung. Suddenly, murmurs erupt from the hallway. Hye-ryung gasps as a commanding figure steps into the room. Legendary senior actor Sim Han-ho walks in, exuding an incredibly raw and rugged. Dressed in a loose tan suit with long, wild hair and a thick beard, his appearance is so intense that Hye-ryung wonders if he has actually been living in the mountains to train. Woo-jin immediately stands to respectfully greet the legend. Han-ho smiles a fierce, challenging smile and warns that his acting might be a bit ferocious today, asking if he should try his best to tame him. Woo-jin's internal monologue instantly panics. He is blown away by the cinematic weight of Han-ho's words, wondering if this is the true aura of a legendary actor, and frantically tries to figure out how to respond without being pushed around. Deciding to mix a little bit of arrogance with proper respect, Woo-jin meets the older man's intense gaze. Without a single blink of hesitation, he calmly states, "Yes. I'll be ready to face it." The entire room falls dead silent. The staff and younger actors are completely frozen, utterly shocked that a younger actor would speak so boldly to an absolute legend among legends. Standing nearby, the director eagerly hushes a concerned staff member who suggests they intervene. The director points out that the room is frozen because they've never seen a standoff like this before, but notes that this battle of nerves between the 2 co-leads is exactly the kind of stimulant needed to light a fire under the cast. Han-ho breaks the silence with a hearty chuckle, thoroughly impressed that Woo-jin answered immediately without a single second of hesitation. Hye-ryung quickly steps in, nervously smiling as she tries to smooth things over by claiming Woo-jin meant it as a way to say he looks forward to working together. Han-ho playfully chides her, asking if she isn't tightening the leash a bit too much from the very start, and gestures to the younger actors who are trembling in fear. The director finally steps forward, calling everyone to take their seats so they can begin the introductions. At last, the script reading for Leech officially commences. The opening line echoes heavily through the room, piercing straight through the core theme of the work. "I don't know anymore who I am, who I'm supposed to be. I've lost my way." The very first scene begins immediately. Woo-jin's character relies entirely on sign language. and the younger cast members watch in absolute awe. The level of his acting is incredibly high. His facial expressions and body language are so vivid and precise that they completely replace any need for spoken lines. Han-ho jumps into the scene, letting out a sharp breath before delivering his line, asking who Woo-jin might be and commanding him to be a good sport and entertain his wife without seducing her. The transformation is instantaneous. Han-ho vanishes, replaced entirely by Chairman Yoon Yong-bi. His presence is suffocating, portraying a man who strictly adheres to his principles on the surface, but clearly demonstrates that he's gripping a knife behind his back. As the read-through continues, the trio of Woo-jin, Han-ho, and Hyeryong project an aura of monsters hiding their true nature. The longer their acting continues, the more chilling it becomes. You can practically feel them spewing lines through deceitful lips. Han-ho's character orders Woo-jin to make his wife blindly dependent on him. Woo-jin signs back that he isn't entirely sure how to do that, and doing it blindly seems even more difficult. Leaning forward, Han-ho delivers his dialogue with dark charisma, explaining that it's all a matter of mindset, changing depending on how you choose to look at it. He orders Woo-jin to start by changing his gaze, the one so full of defeat. Watching this unfold, the director is mesmerized by the nuanced texture Han-ho has crafted in such a short time, maintaining core authority while playing the role like a jester with an underlying lust for dominance. But Woo-jin does not back down in the slightest. He signs his response, asking if it is merely a matter of mindset, would believing that they live in the same world suffice. The director smiles widely, his heart pounding at this incredible clash between acting monsters, already anticipating just how much more intense things will get once principal photography officially begins. Far beyond the tense atmosphere of the Korean studio, the scene shifts to a bright, luxurious room where Robert stands in front of Joseph. He speaks to Joseph, asking for his thoughts on today's script reading for Leech. Joseph calmly replies that he wants to witness his Woo-jin's true acting, so he plans to visit the set during the official shoot. Robert understood this, and he will pull tomorrow's plan to visit the set. Suddenly, Joseph's phone rings. He notices it was from Miley. He picked up and introduced himself. She asked where Joseph is. He tells her that he is not currently in Lowe's Angels, but he is in Korea. Miley asked about where in Korea, because she also just arrived in Korea. Joseph is completely blindsided. He demands to know what she is talking about, reminding her that she was supposed to be in the middle of working on her album. Miley casually explains that she slipped in secretly, ensuring no one besides her team knows, and is currently heading to a confidential rental property. She asks Joseph to play dumb for her, then flips the conversation, asking why he is visiting the set of Leech for their first day of shooting. Joseph is taken aback, asking how she found out about his travel plans and if she ran background checks on him. Miley laughs brightly, explaining that it was pure coincidence. Joseph's team had sent an inquiry to the film's production team, who actually confused them for Miley's team. Joseph points out that as a producer, his interest in the film is justified, but finds it far stranger for Miley to be taking an interest. Miley confesses that she is interested because of a specific actor starring in the movie. She asks Joseph point-blank if he flew to Korea just to see Kang Woo-jin, pointing out that all those old news articles about Woo-jin's Hollywood screen test were directly tied to him. Joseph plays coy, admitting he is looking at that Korean actor, but vaguely gestures that there are plenty of highly talented actors on the set, and it's hard to jump to conclusions. Regardless of her reasons, she insists she wants to tag along with Joseph on set. Joseph rubs his face in frustration, realizing Miley's massive presence makes it impossible to simply ignore her request. Deciding it wouldn't hurt to have her owe him a favor, he agrees to let her come, but asks in disbelief if she seriously flew all the way to Korea just for one actor named Kang Woo-jin. They end the call, leaving Joseph staring at his phone in contemplation. He can't figure out Miley Kara's exact intentions, but it is blatantly obvious that Kang Woo-jin is the main reason for her secret cross-country flight. Whether she saw something in him during her movie promotion tour or has other plans, one truth remains absolute. Kang Woo-jin has captivated far more Hollywood figures than anyone could have ever anticipated.